Second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about...
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
English, mother...
Body, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
Let's put a smile on that face.
What's up, film family, and welcome to the Film Room Podcast. My name's Dion.
My name is Scott.
And today we're talking about the star-studded 2019 mystery Knives Out. And if you're new to the show, Scott and I always have an honest discussion. We talk about the movie we just watched. And at the end of the show, we give out 6 awards, which we call the Filmies. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to give out a spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you watch it and then come back. This is about like my third or fourth time seeing this movie. But Scott, I know this is your first time. So that being said, what was your thoughts with Knives Out?
Yeah, I liked it, bro. I liked it. It was the ending. I kind of saw coming a little bit,
Okay,
but not all of it. And you know, we'll talk more about it, I guess, when we get there. I'm not gonna bring it all up now, but yeah, I liked it, dude. Like the tone, I thought was really cool. Like it was the mystery, like classic whodunit at the start, but then they switched it up, and there was comedy in it. There was some funny bits. There's some funny characters, some funny moments. There was times where it was like ominous and like a little creepy. You know, like when she went in that laundromat, I was like, oh shit, this is actually like, I was on my edge of my seat. I was like, oh, this is a little creepy. But then there's the funny thing. So like the way it was seamless, like the way they went back and forth between like creepy and funny and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool.
No, it's a good point you mentioned too, because I didn't really think about it until I was doing like the research on the whole like whodunit thing. Because like they're like, yeah, it was interesting what Rian Johnson did with this, because they don't really make whodunits really anymore. It's like they make mystery movies, but specific like this whodunit genre of movie, like the kind of like it's like he said it was based off like kind of like Agatha Christie because he was a fan of her growing up, and it's like those specific kind of it's kind of like a cliche almost kind of mystery movie where it's not like a Sherlock Holmes kind of movie. Like Sherlock Holmes is kind of like a whodunit, and but outside of that, you don't really get those very like those where a detective comes in and it's like who did the thing. You know what I mean? Like very like versus like any other kind of mystery where maybe I can't think of an example of different kind of mysteries, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, totally. I know what you mean. It's like because there's all the different people in the same house. Like you said, cliche, and I think it's kind of like a specific style that I think it's cool that he went with this, but he also strayed from it a little bit. It's not exactly that, but like the whole concept of like a house full of all these different characters, and they all have different motivations, and any one of them could have done it, and we're just picking up clues as the movie goes on. Like it's such a great mystery movie, and that style is so fun, and so many different things you can do with it. But it's so cool that when I went into this movie, right? Because like you said, this is my first time watching it, and I thought it was a classic whodunit. There's going to be a murder at the start, and at the end of it, we're going to figure out who killed him and what happened.
Yeah.
But we find out early on how he actually died and what actually happened. So when that happened, I was like, oh shit, I didn't expect this. Like I didn't expect to have this reveal of who killed him and how he died.
Yeah.
So early on, and there's still so much of the movie left, and I was like, okay, now where are we going from here? So I thought, the real mystery was who killed him, but at the end of it, it was really like who hired Blanc, and like what's gonna happen with Marta and the money, and all these other things that I did not expect from the movie when I click play.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I love the movie so much, because it's that specific thing why I like introducing to people, because I feel like people always feel the same way. They always expect the same thing if they haven't seen the movie. When you talk about a whodunit of like, okay, so I know what the formula of these are. It's like, okay, a kill happens, and then the whole movie we're trying to figure out who's the killer, whatever it is, right? So in this movie, it's basically halfway through the movie they tell you this is what happened, and now you're sitting with that person. It's like it's different because you're kind of rooting for them at the same part. It's not like it's like you're with Marta and she's like this evil person. It's like, oh snap, like you feel bad for her that she was put in this situation, and the person that is the killer. I mean, I already said the spoiler warning, so we're getting all in this, but
yeah, go for it.
But the person that we assume as the killer, it's like, oh, there's more to it, and now we're like there's this suspense that's sitting with us because we're like, oh man, now like what's gonna happen with it? Like, where is this going? Like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up. Like Marta is someone we're kind of rooting for, right?
Mhm.
Like she's an immigrant, and everyone else in this story is rich, and they're all
Yeah.
pieces of shit. And
Yeah.
and then the way that that Harlan dies, and he's like, "No, I want you to be safe. I don't want them to find out about your mom. You go to jail, so do this and this and this." Uh, and actually, that brings me to one of my cool facts was that Ryan Johnson said that the hardest part of writing the script was
Mhm.
coming up with how Marta kills Harlan.
Okay. Yeah.
So, because basically he's like, I needed something that she and the audience believe was an accident,
Mhm.
right? So that we can still root for her, right? Like she
Yeah.
didn't just murder him and then we're like, okay, fuck her, she's the killer.
Yeah.
Like, no, it was an accident, but also something that he could undo at the end, right? And have someone else be
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
responsible for
No,
it,
for sure.
like
Yeah, like it
like
couldn't be like a stab wound, like or
exactly.
something, or like accidentally shot the person, like that kind of thing. It
Right,
had to
because
be.
then
Yeah, yeah.
how would it be that Ransom actually made that happen? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it
No, for
couldn't be
sure.
just a freak accident like that. So, and also if you think about it like that, if it was a stab wound or a gunshot and Harlan dies right away, I guess you could have him bleed out, but how like he has to stay alive for a few minutes, right? So he could explain this plan to Marta and
Yeah.
orchestrate this whole thing. And the fact that he's an author of murder
Yeah,
mysteries,
I know.
so like
Yeah.
he could develop this whole crazy plan is so sick, dude.
It's also hilarious how like just now we're talking about it, him writing down like he's like writing down like a plot from even though he's about to die. He's like, oh, so 10 minutes. So like the police wouldn't be able to make it, huh? Okay, it's interesting. This man's still writing.
It's like, bro, you're about to die. What does that
Yeah.
matter?
He's like, he should have been like, yo, hand this to my son before I go, yo. He needs to put this in the next one. Yo.
Fuck his son. You didn't
Yeah,
trust him
I
with
know.
nothing.
No, he didn't trust it. Yeah, that's how I'm like, why did he even write it down? Who's that for?
That's a good point. I never thought of that. That was actually for nobody.
I
That's a
didn't even think
great
about
point.
that. That's the first time I ever thought about that too. Where it's just like, yeah, he doesn't even fuck with his kids like that. So who did he write down that plot for?
For Marta.
For Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we don't
She was
know.
gonna
Yeah.
write the book.
Maybe he's teaching her how to write. I don't know.
Exactly. Dude, another thing I loved about this movie was like the way it was shot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like the way that it's so over like you mentioned the style is like a cliche and they kind of
Mhm.
lean into that, right? Like
Yeah.
by going over the top with like Blanc, who's just ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like he's so formal in the way that he talks, but he's also a fucking moron. So they
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
play with it on that. And like I said, the way it was shot, so like they got some funny camera angles, they got intense close-ups, and like
Mhm.
they have the crazy lighting where it's like just half of their face or something, where it's like it's supposed to be super ominous, but it's so
Yeah.
over the top. Like it just fits the style of the movie that it's not taking itself so seriously. I really like that part of the movie too.
Oh, 100%. And it's like talk about the whole cliche things. Like it's supposed like the whole cliche is supposed to be like it's usually British, right? So it's funny how like you take the British guy and give him like a freaking Kentucky accent.
His accent was so trash, bro.
Oh
What
my
was
god,
that?
yeah, it was so good. And I guess they just didn't want it to be a classic British thing,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Like let's make this in the States. And that's another thing with most of those whodunit movies. Like they're always usually like somewhere in Europe. So that's like that was his twist on it. And then also making it because you could have easily made it a period piece. Because a lot of those whodunits usually like live within those because people just remake Agatha Christie movies and those movies were written like in like the 50s, 60s, or whatever. So then when people make the movies, they just keep them in those times. But he was like, how you saw like there's social media and stuff like that. Like they're talking about like Twitter and stuff like that. So it's like even I wonder because yeah, even like the Sherlock Holmes movies that Guy Ritchie made too. Those were period pieces too. So it's like I don't know what's to give him they say he's the first, but at least like the first mainstream one. I think that was another reason why I liked it too. I was like, oh, this is different. Like we're doing the whodunit in modern time,
Yeah. No,
which
you're
makes
right. It was a great call. And they're talking about politics too,
yeah,
like the current politics, which is pretty wild and funny
yeah, I
too.
know.
But like there is so yeah, like these little hints of humor that they threw into the movie because most whodunits don't have that either.
Yeah,
They don't have
no,
any
it's true.
humor. So like they're taking themselves so seriously and like, okay, we're giving you bits of clues so you can try and we're leading you in this direction. Maybe you think it's this person, maybe you think it's that person. And then there's a giant twist at the end. But I think one of the reasons why I like this movie so much is even though, like I said, the twist at the end, I like that Ransom did it. I kind of saw it coming that it was him.
Mhm.
So, but I still like this movie so much because all leading up to it, there's all these little hints of humor, the tone switches, and where we were going throughout the movie. I had no idea, bro.
Yeah.
Like when they do the reveal of how he died, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh shit, well, what next? So, like,
Yeah.
they always kept me guessing, like, throughout the movie. I was locked in the whole time. And you're right, like, doing it in modern times and just changing it just a little bit to give us something fresh and new. So good.
Oh yeah, and just like the last thing I'll say about it too is just like mystery, just in general. Well, I'm not saying it's the last thing. This isn't the last thing I'm going to say about it. I
Yeah,
don't
we're
know
gonna have
why.
a 10-minute
Yeah,
episode. What are you
exactly.
talking
Yeah,
about?
but no, I just love the mystery genre so much. I always think about like why, and I think back to like when I was a kid. Like I'm gonna shout out Geronimo Stilton because I used to read the Geronimo Stilton books. I
Hey,
gotta shout out Martin's Mystery. I don't know if you remember that show.
yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah,
another one
totally.
too. And then I think that's another one of the reasons why I like the Scream movies too much because they're all whodunits.
Mm.
It's like I like the style of like you have all these characters, someone dies, and it's like, all right, who's the person? Who's the person under the mask? Or if, in this case, like who's the person that did the kill? So it's like these. Okay, now keeping us on our toes. Where's the Mister X? All those things. And obviously, the OG of all that is Scooby Doo. At least for me,
Yeah,
you got
yeah. I
yeah,
was about
Scooby
to shout
Doo's.
out. I was like, you got to say Scooby Doo,
Nah, you
bro.
gotta say Scooby Doo, yo. There's specifically the two ones I gotta say, and I rewatched these ones, even though they're freaking kids movies.
No
Is the
way.
Cyber Chase and the Witch's Ghost. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those. That probably doesn't ring a bell, huh?
The Scooby Doo movies.
Yeah.
The Cyber Chase definitely rings a bell. And what was the other one?
The Witch's Ghost.
Was that the one with the three
The Hex Girls.
girls? Yeah, the heck,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
I know that
You
shit.
know.
Yeah, yo, they were spitting, bro. They had
Oh yeah,
some
100%.
bangers in that movie. That was, yeah, I remember both of those. Give me some respect.
Okay, that's what's up. That's a, you see, these are the three girls. I was like, the
Yeah.
Hex Girls, the Hex Girls. Yo, the Hex Girls were low key like Mrs. Incredible for me. Yo. I was like, oh, these shorties are kind of bad. They're kind of
Ooh,
bad. Yo.
okay.
They're kind of bad.
A Pixar mom going.
Yeah, a little bit, a little
Shoot.
bit. And the Cyber Chase one is kind of like it's kind of like the what do you call it? Like like Spider-Man when the why am I forgetting it? Multiverse.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
multiverse. So it's like they go into a computer, whatever it is, and it's a video game made about them, about like some computer designer made a video game about them. So in the video game, they go inside of it and they see all the different versions of them. So it's like they see like the old school version of them. They see like a new school version. It's like kind of like like there's all different versions of Power Rangers. They go in
Yeah.
the game and they see all the different versions of them. So I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. So I messed with that one because of that. And the mystery is actually the twist is pretty good too. I might have to do
Yeah.
that for the pod at one point.
Scooby Doo Cyber
Yeah,
Chase. See, yeah, I haven't watched that in a gajillion years, so I don't really remember the movie itself that much. But like I feel like I remember the title page, like the poster.
Okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, awesome movies and mystery in general. I think one of the reasons I like it so much is like, I mean, part of why I like movies so much, pretty much
Mhm.
the biggest reason I like movies so much is like you're there to be told a story, to watch a
Yeah.
story unfold, right?
Mhm.
And you don't want to know what's happening next. If you could just see it coming, then it's boring,
Yeah,
right? Whereas
exactly.
like the whole mystery, the whole foundation of that is you don't know what's happening next, or you don't know who who done it.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't know who
Yeah.
done it. So like when you're going through the movie and they're giving you clues and you're trying to piece the puzzle together yourself. And I think that's what's so much fun, right? You're like, you can be like, okay, I think it's this person because this, and then some new information comes and be like, oh no, maybe it's this person, and it just, you're trying to solve the case as the movie's going along, and that's what's fun. You have no stakes in it, no one's
Yeah.
actually dead, so you're just trying to solve this interesting case, and then by the end of it, you either right or you're completely wrong and like totally backwards. Do you remember the first time you watched this? Like, were you right?
Well, the first time I watched it, I don't know. I think I kind of like took it for what it was, and I didn't like. I didn't think Ransom did it. Like the first time I watched it,
Okay.
I watched it in theaters, and I remember going into it, and I was kind of just taking for what it was, and I was like, okay, like, and then once the note and all that stuff came, I was kind of just like, oh, now I don't know. Now I was just like, just tell me where it's going. I wasn't even thinking about it at that point. I was like, so I didn't. I didn't figure it out, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't figure out the whole plan,
Yeah,
but like when the detective comes around the corner at the end with Ransom in his arm, I was kind of like, oh yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like if he came around with fucking like literally any other of the other characters, I would have been like, oh shit,
yeah.
it was her or it was him,
No,
you
for
know,
sure.
it was fucking Jacob, that little piece of shit. What the fuck? How
Yeah,
did he do it? You know what I mean? And then seeing the whole reveal of how it would happen would be so crazy. And then like seeing the
Mhm.
whole reveal of what happened was still really crazy.
No,
Like
for
there's no
sure.
way I knew the whole plan.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
plan is fucking insane. But like that it was Ransom, I kind of saw because like when she leaves the house after I think it was the will reading, and then they're having like that lunch or breakfast or whatever at that diner,
Mhm.
and you know she's telling him the whole story and everything, and you could see him kind of like calculating and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, I feel like it might be him, and then the blackmail, he's with her
Yeah.
the whole time through the car chase,
Mhm.
and you know he's even like, oh, maybe they sent you an email.
Yeah.
Like, how would you know
Yeah.
that, bro?
Yeah. That was the I was obviously on my rewatch. That was one of the times, especially like taking notes. I'm like, okay, that's kind of sus.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first
Yeah.
time I was kind of like, yeah, okay, that's kind of sus. But you know why? I think my brain was just doing the thing of like, I don't think it was crazy obvious it was him, first of all, because
No, it
they
wasn't.
showed
You're
they
right.
showed you this information and they're like, okay, Marta's the killer. I have to accept that she's the killer. So like I'm not even gonna my brain's not gonna even go to those other things. But if you didn't have that, I feel like most people go in like, okay, he's the killer. He feels like he has the most motive. They had a screaming match. You know what I mean? Like everyone, other people have motives, but he seemed the most upset from the party scene that we saw. So I was like, that makes sense. But once they introduced that the twist of with the Marta thing, I was like, okay. But if you take that out, then it's like, yeah, I your eyes lock on like this guy seems
Mhm.
suspect.
No, that's a good point, but I think that's why them putting the information, like the reveal that Marta's the killer, putting that early in the movie to throw you off is such a great call.
Hmm.
Because then, like you said, you'd see the party scene, you'd see that he stormed off, and you'd be like, okay, this guy did it. And then, you know, they throw that in there and be like, nope, he didn't do it. It was Marta. And, you know, we're gonna go from here and see how the family reacts to the
Yeah,
money and all this shit. Like, because it's not just a who done it. That's what's so cool
yeah,
about this movie. Like, it is a who done it, but it's not just a who done it. There's so much other stuff going on, and the characters are all super interesting, and the way they
yeah.
interact with each other, it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, as we're talking about the characters, like we just talk about it, like the as we get the one on one with the family, like we see Harlan's death, like you said at the beginning, and then we get into the one on ones. Like, I'm curious what your initial thoughts were, like as we're meeting the family members. Like, were you leaning toward like as because it's interesting, yeah, it's interesting to hear your thought process because I'm already like watching it and I already know what it is. So
Yeah.
like as you're seeing each person, were you like, okay, like were you taking like mental notes, like okay, this person's kind of sus, or like what was your
For
thought?
sure. I mean, the like I knew it was a who done it, right? So I'm
Yeah.
coming in, I'm laser focused. I'm
Hmm.
like, you know, most times like I throw on a movie and I'm just like along for the ride. But for this one, I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure out. So I'm from the first scene. I'm like, I'm looking for tiny little things,
Yeah.
which is actually pretty interesting because there are little things that do go unnoticed. And I'll answer your question in a second, but
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
just popped into my head. But like throwaway lines in the movie that you
Hmm.
feel like are meaningless, like when Fran is talking to Marta and she's like, oh, my cousin works at the medical examiner's office. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't mean like you don't
Hmm.
even register that
Yeah.
in the at the time, right? But then it comes back and that's actually a meaningful thing. And when Meg wakes up and the dogs are because the dogs are barking,
Yeah.
right? You're like, oh, she just woke up because dogs are barking, you know, dogs bark, like that's a
Yeah,
normal thing.
exactly. Yeah.
And then we're like, oh no, that's actually because Ransom was coming back. And like, so all these little things, and and also Fran, when they said only the help calls him Hugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That that's
little
a
things like
that's a
this that it's
big
like
one too.
exactly, bro.
It's
Like
just like a
but
little
tiny little
throwaway.
throwaway line that you don't even think is anything, and it becomes this big actual piece of the puzzle. It's so cool.
Yeah, and then another one too when Walt's smoking the cigar and he turns, go back to bed, Dad. You're just like, okay, Harlan, just
Whatever.
going down,
Yeah.
going back up. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's all yeah, there's all these little things. And it's just like, okay, whatever. What is that? What does that even mean? Nothing. It's
Yeah.
just like little lines that had then everything comes back. You're like, oh, there was more to
Yeah.
it than that.
I love that in a movie so much, but yeah, so the all the character introductions, Yeah, really just I'm noticing each character is a piece of shit. Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're introducing each one and why they're a piece of shit. Like
Hmm.
we have Linda that's like, no, I built my
Oh, his
company from the
business.
ground up. It's like you're rich as hell. What are you talking about? Like
Yeah.
stop, don't do this. And Walt that says he's built this company and the publishing and he's not doing shit.
Yeah.
Richard that's cheating on it. Like they're all pieces of shit in their own way. But the one thing that I did notice was with Walt and Linda,
Hmm.
they both visualize when they're talking to the cops
Yeah.
themselves right beside Harlan when he's blowing out the birthday candles.
Oh, yeah,
Like when
you're
they're
right.
talking about it, so
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
they're both right beside them, but the other one's not
yeah.
when they're recounting the story. So immediately I'm like, okay, like there's lies being told here, or
Yeah.
there's like untrustworthy memory things, and like it's such a great movie thing,
Oh,
like
for
say that
sure.
like this is what our characters are remembering what's happened, but it's not totally true, so you don't know what is true. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that too because another thought popped in my mind too of it's like sometimes they show you information and it's like you're not watching this movie like, oh, I can't trust anything they show me. But when you mention something like that, you think about like, okay, they're telling it through their perspective, so then you're seeing things that like, okay, I don't know if this is true. But then other times, like people like will have flashbacks. Like Marta, when she's having her flashback, I feel like I get maybe that's to do with the character almost too, where it's like everything that you see Marta flashback to or think in her head, we see is true because she's a good person, right? So like whenever she's imagining something, I feel like that's the when you can be like, okay, this is probably what's actually true. And then again, it goes with the whole puking
Yeah.
thing. So, but even when she's not like actually telling it, like she's having like her own flashbacks. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to see this as true. Versus like when what's her name, Joni is talking about how like the family like loves her and everything, but even in her flashback, the families don't fuck with her.
Yeah.
Like Jamie Lee Curtis' character's like, get off me. So I'm like,
And she's
okay,
just like dancing
yeah, I know.
around and like I mean it's so funny the stereotype of like because she's like the super liberal one,
Yeah,
right? When they're when they start talking politics, and
yeah,
she's like the skincare guru, like
yeah,
free spirit, probably a pothead,
yeah,
and then you have like Richard that's the old money douchebag, and he
yeah,
oh man, you're right, but it's so funny like in the flashback that even she's like the family's pushing her off and stuff like that. But you're right, when I see Marta's flashback, I do assume it's true.
yeah,
And I guess that's because we learn early on that she's just a good person. Like I
yeah,
think it's just that she's not a piece of shit. She comes from humble beginnings. We see her in her apartment with her family, and it's not a big giant mansion. So we're all already like, okay, this is a real person. She's working. She's friends with Harlan. Harlan likes her. She's a good person. She wouldn't lie to me. And if she lies, she's gonna throw up.
yeah, exactly.
Could you
Which,
imagine?
oh yeah, that'd be horrible. I mean, maybe you'd have a better life. I mean, well, actually, I don't know, because then it's tough. Even like the little, sometimes you want to have little white lies if you still want to hurt someone's feelings, right?
Right.
Someone
Yeah.
come up to you, be like, "How do I look in this?" And you gotta be like, "Ah, well, damn." Not gonna be honest. You don't necessarily have to destroy them, but
Yeah.
you're like, "Hey, you don't look the best, maybe."
Yeah, I feel like you'd come up with like ways to work around it where
Well, do
you're
what
like
she
not
does.
lying. Yeah, you're not lying, but
Yeah,
you're not telling the truth.
yeah,
You
yeah,
kind of do neither. Like I don't know in that situation what you would do. Like, oh, do I look nice? You'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm getting a phone call.
yeah,
It's just
exactly.
like I don't know what you would do, but
You
I
could
feel
be
like you'd
like,
come up with little
yeah, I
tricks.
know. You'd be like, out, like someone comes up with some ugly ass outfit. You'd be like, you know what? I've never seen someone uh look like better in that than you. And then you'd be like, that's true because I've never seen someone wear that garbage. So you could do that. I don't know. Like, oh, thank you. Wait, they'd be like, wait, have you seen someone else wear that? Now you take your phone call.
Yeah, not, that's when you get the phone call. Yeah, you gotta have like a setting on your phone where you can click a button and it just starts ringing or something. Or have two phones. Have something
Oh,
you could
true.
just
Call
you always
yourself.
have an out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's funny too. We were talking about, I can't remember what movie we were talking about that we were saying, because we were talking about the whole, like, I was saying 2019 was the year of like the fuck the rich movies. I
Mm.
can't remember. And I was saying how like Parasite, and I named this movie too. I was like, this is another one of them that came out in 2019. I don't
It
know
was
what movie.
Joker.
Was it? Oh yeah, Joker. Yeah, Joker came out this year. Parasite came
Yeah.
out this year, and this came out, and it all had to do with like class. And I'm like, damn, everyone was on something that year.
Fuck the
Like,
rich,
because
man.
everyone's extremes. I mean, they're all like they're stupid. Like we don't even really know how rich Harlan is, but like we assume they're stupid they're stupid rich. The fact that he was the money and the like the assets he had was 60 million, and then they're like, and the big one is the book company. I'm like, damn. So 60
Yeah,
mil is not the big one.
that's
Like,
nothing.
yeah. So I'm like, damn, these guys, they definitely got money.
And the fact that Joni was stealing from him for like a year or however long it
4 years.
was. Oh, there you go, 4 years, and he didn't even notice for the
Yeah.
longest time because it's like she's literally living off this man. And he can't even tell.
Yeah.
That's insane.
$800,000. He was just like, oh shit. And so until someone pointed out to him, he didn't even notice that was
That's insane.
that didn't dent it. It didn't dent his wallet, apparently. He's like, that's pocket change.
Yeah, not even $1 million.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
That's
That's crazy.
Well, the one thing that I thought was kind of funny too, which I didn't really notice like the first couple times I watched it too, well, is the fact that like when Walt hugs Marta, and then even when I forget Jamie Lee Curtis's character name, when she hugs her too, and they're
Linda.
like Linda, yeah, she's like, I thought you should have been there at the funeral. I was outvoted. And I was like, okay, so you voted for her, apparently. Walt voted for her. You're gonna tell me Joni voted against? Like, clearly they're lying. And it's just a funny thing where they just keep saying, like, I got outvoted. I'm like, they're all just full of shit.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's a
any
good
of them
point.
I don't think any of them wanted her to be there, but they're just saying that to be nice. But I'm like,
Yeah,
because let's think about it. Who do you think gets a vote? Because I don't think the kids gets votes because they're kids. Why are they gonna vote who comes to the funeral, right?
yeah.
So then you get Richard. He's part of the family, but he's part of the family through marriage. So you think it's just the kids. And even Joni is like, she's in it through marriage too. So
Yeah.
who's really getting it's Walt, and then it's
You think it's just Walt and Linda?
yeah. So it's like, who is outvoting them that yeah, Marta shouldn't be there. And oh yeah, and freaking Hugh or freaking Ransom.
Yeah.
He didn't even go. Like, I don't think he even give a shit to
No, he wasn't
whether
there.
to vote or not. So it's just, I thought that was funny where they both say like, oh, you should have been at the funeral. I got outvoted. I'm like, who outvoted you? Like,
Yeah, no, I didn't think of that because I didn't even I didn't think of that on my first watch.
yeah,
But it's a good point. You're right. Like definitely nobody outvoted him. Like the only person that would for sure, Joni wouldn't vote against her. She was always, she was liberal and
yeah,
nicer to her.
yeah.
Like the kids, maybe the kids do get a vote. Maybe that's
But
what
why
it is. Like,
would they? Maybe the kid,
I don't
the
know.
guy would have.
Yeah, he would have voted against it for sure. Meg wouldn't. Meg
No,
was,
Meg
she was
wouldn't.
actually the only one out of the family that was actually pretty decent. She never really did
Yeah.
anything that bad.
No, that's for sure. Besides the phone call thing, that was the only sus thing she kind of did.
Yeah, it was the phone call, but at the same time, the whole family was behind
Yeah.
her, so I
No,
I
that's
can
true.
assume she kind of got pressured into it.
No, that's
So
true.
I can give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but yeah, I know. Yeah, it's and yeah, she
that was
did.
definitely a lie.
No, it
the voting thing.
100%, 100% was a lie. But so again, like we get like the whole like detective facts. So then we were telling everyone's retelling the story. We were talking about how like it's very like tight knit about them talking about how, oh, this is what happened. There was actually a deleted scene. I don't know if you saw about this, that there was a
No.
deleted scene. Like, and I found it kind of interesting that there was a whole almost like a different kind of storyline of like what kind of happened. But before I mention it, like, what did you think about the whole recalling of the night? When he was retelling that, did you notice anything? Like,
Like when the cop was telling it to Blanc, you mean?
yeah,
No, I kind of took it for what it was. When
Okay.
he was saying, okay, there's the stairs. Yeah, there wasn't anything that really, because I was super focused on this,
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, where is there a hole? Where is there something? And there was no hole. It all checked out. And that's
Mm.
what's interesting because the guy, like, not Ransom, Harlan is a mystery murder author. So he
Yeah.
would think of all this stuff, right? It's crazy. Like, he comes up with this plan in 2 seconds. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
now put on my robe and hat and go down so that they can see me, and remember to call at the time when you leave. Like, all these little things that it makes sense.
Yeah.
This is how you cover your tracks. But the fact that he came up with it so fast, like, I would kind of, if he wasn't a murder mystery author, I'd kind of be like, how did you come up with this so fast?
Yeah.
But the fact that he is, it just works in the story. But there was nothing that jumped out at me that I was like, okay, that's a clue. But
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
curious if you, on your third or fourth watch, if you noticed anything.
I mean, it was just the little stuff like we talked about. Like as they're retelling, like we talked about the dogs barking, and we talked about
Mm,
like the Harlan coming down the stairs. So like it's pretty tight though. It's not like they had something there. It was like if you look closely, you can see Marna running in the back, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty tight in the sense of like, okay, this is that I see why that the lieutenant or like the other cops be like, no, there's nothing here. Like everyone
yeah.
has their alibis and it's all good. This was clearly a suicide. So it was pretty tight knit in that sense. And I was like I as you're talking about like that scene of them in the I thought it was interesting the dynamic that we got to see with Harlan and Marta like when they were playing Go and stuff like that because that's the only time we really got to see Marta like that. You know what I mean? Like she was not having it with him. He's like, "Yo, come play Go." She's like, "Man, I don't got time for that." You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to go home. I thought it was interesting because like the whole other rest of the movie, we kind of just see her like she's kind of like the submissive character, but in that moment, even when he was saying like, "Let's play goal," I'm gonna whoop your ass. She's like, "Okay, let's go, let's go. Let's go, old man. I'm gonna beat your ass. I'm gonna go home."
That's what he had to say to like get her to play the game.
Yeah,
Because yeah, she was like, "Man, I don't want to do this shit." And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna whoop you." And she was like, "Well, I can't have that." You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like if you think about it, if we're doing the same thing, if we're just shooting, like, man, I'll whoop you in 21. You're like, well, I can't let him just say that.
yeah,
I
exactly.
got, I got to take him now. But you're right. I mean, it's interesting that we see her in a different tone in that scene, and we see kind of because Harlan, we also see him. We only see him when he's interacting with the family, right? And he's
Mhm.
telling all of them how they all suck and like why he's giving them all motives to kill him,
Yeah.
right? So it's all negative stuff. And then when he's chilling just with Marta, and this is actually his true like friend, and he
Mhm.
starts to like lighten up a bit, and he's more personable. Like Harlan seemed like he was a good hang.
Yeah, no, he did. He seemed like he was chill. Yeah, because up until that point, we just got like the stern dude, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna cut you off. Like you're double dipping, did like all this stuff, and then yeah, when they're just there, it's like they're just laid back. And it's like, oh, this is chill. They just come up and they play Go together. But like I just thought specifically, like Anna de Almas, like there wasn't my favorite scene, and I'm not declaring anything from this scene, but but I just thought she was really good in that scene, just from the because I don't know why, specifically on this watch, I noticed it where I was just thinking about, I'm like, yeah, she came into the room, like we didn't see this. She's like that kind of side of her, and then they're kind of jokey, and then when shit gets serious, you see her like her switch and how upset she gets. And I just thought like
hmm
all in that one scene, she just like went through all these different emotions. I just thought she was really really good in that scene.
I think that's actually a really important point that you bring up because I think she has to be really good in that scene for to sell the twist,
Yeah,
right? Because if she isn't cool with Harlan, because she comes in like you said, kind of icy, and she's like, "No, I just want to go home. I'm not don't want
yeah,
to play this game." And then if she doesn't sell "Oh no, we're just chilling, we're having a good time, we're good friends," and then when the mistake happens with the medicine, and she's genuinely like freaking out, she's like, "No, no, no! Like I made a huge mistake," and she's generally really sad about it. If she doesn't do that, then we're like, okay, she just killed him, and we don't like we have to root for her. We
yeah,
have to root for her for us to be like, okay, no, this is a character that when she's trying to cover her ass and like basically, and she's lying to the detectives,
hmm,
right? We're not like, oh, like fuck her. We want the detectives to get it right, right?
yeah.
We want to see her succeed. We want her to get out of this situation. And if she's not nice to Harlan there, and like they have this good back and forth in that scene, I think that is important to set up the rest of the movie. So it's a good point.
No, 100. No, everything you said is 100% too. And another thing that came to mind too is just like it even went even further, which is like, you want to do some drugs? You want the good stuff? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I don't know why I waited this long to become an addict. Yeah. He's like, I should have been doing this earlier in my life. I was like, okay, Harlan, I see you.
Yeah, he
And they're
doesn't give a
getting
fuck.
lit. And that was another thing. That was another thing too. They kept that pretty tight too. 'Cause I kept looking. I'm like, can you see the name on the bottle? So it's they
Mm.
don't they have them flipped, and even when she's holding it in a way that you can't see. So it's like and they you don't see like her like grab one and then like flip and be like, oh, that's the like it's tight in that sense where they don't give anything away.
I guess that actually kind of is a little bit of a clue because like Blanc says at the end, right? He's like, you ended up giving him the right medicine because
Yeah.
you just knew. Like they're slightly different in the consistency or the
Hmm.
clarity or whatever. So you just knew. So if you think about it in that scene, if she's not even looking at the labels, if
Yeah.
she's covering it with her hand or whatever, then obviously it wasn't her purposely doing it, or it
Yeah.
wasn't her. The vials being switched didn't, or the labels being switched didn't actually affect anything because she didn't even look at them.
Yeah, that's true. Can you imagine that alternate ending where it's just like you see like like it goes into like a dark flash, and you just see her looking at the label and just like, damn it, damn it. It's like it was never she shoots Ransom a look. You'd be like, oh shit, no, that'd be a weird ending, but
Like if she actually meant to kill him,
yeah.
but then the shit was flipped, and she's like, "Oh shit, it was a suicide." The fuck? Well, that's even better. I didn't do it.
Oh, but that goes to the deleted scene I was talking about. There was two deleted scenes, but one of them was that I think they added more layers. They added more layers to other people being more of suspects. But I feel like they tightened it down because they were like, now we have to like there's too much of an avenue where we have to go further with these characters. It kind of goes with the like the Goodwill Hunting thing I was talking about, how like they cut the scene with Chucky and Skylar because like oh
Mm.
now it's another relationship that we gotta like venture off on. You know what I mean? And with this, the scene was there was a scene with Blanche where he was like rubbing his neck. They're like, well, you got a rash? And he's like, yeah, man, I think I got a rash. So then he talks to Joni like in a separate room, and they talk about like, oh, how's your business going, whatever, like whatever, or phlegm or whatever, right? And she's like, oh, it's going good. He's like, really? That's interesting. Because I remember I was looking up and I saw people a lot of complaints. He's like, I actually bought your product. And I saw all the complaints, people saying it gives them rashes and all that shit. It's like apparently your business is in the shits. So it's like the money Harlan's giving you is the only thing that's keeping you afloat and keeping up your lifestyle. So like, so that there's a whole thing where it almost showed her like she was kind of steaming, being like, oh, like he's on to me, like
Yeah.
he does know that like I need Harlan's money. So, but I guess they didn't want to add that extra layer because I don't know. I feel like her reasoning to be a killer could be because again you're watching a whodunit, so like maybe, but I feel like it wouldn't be it wasn't that strong anywhere. They felt like let's really like pat on the Joni thing.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think she was already big enough of a suspect in the fact that she was stealing from him and then he cut her off.
Yeah.
Like that's already enough for me to be like, okay, it could be her.
Mhm.
That's already enough. And then there's even a point when Marta calls Meg, or Meg calls Marta, and she's like, "No, my mom's broke. Like
Yeah.
she has no." So she even says it. So you don't necessarily need that whole scene
No,
explaining
it's
that
true.
she's broke. I think us understanding that she was living off of him,
Mhm.
and now that money is stopped, and then just one little note later to confirm, yeah, she's broke. I feel like that's enough to plausibly have her as a suspect because I feel like that's basically what you're trying to do throughout the movie is not discount anybody. Like you're
Yeah.
trying to give little clues to say, okay, it could be this person, could be that person, could be this person, but you don't want to completely discount anyone from who it could be
Yeah.
because then it just makes the reveal at the end less special, right? Because there's less possibility. Whereas if you keep everything up in the air and anybody could be it, it keeps you guessing all the way to the end. So I think that's a good way. It's enough to keep her as a suspect, and that's all you need.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I remember after I watched the clip, I was it's a weird thing where I felt like this. I feel like I'm watching like an alternate universe kind of thing. It's like you watch a movie, then you watch like a deleted scene, and you see like a different perspective. I'm like, oh, I couldn't imagine that being because it was very ominous. Like it felt like almost kind of like dark in the sense of like it made it like if you have a scene where it's not like it wasn't like really dimly lit or anything in the sense where it just felt like oh like you see her kind of like steaming of like oh he's on to me kind of thing
Mm.
where it's like I could see how you could add that to the movie where it's like well, we want to like really like misdirect you because obviously in the end it wasn't her. It was like let's
Hmm.
misdirect you by putting more on Joni. Like let's add this extra scene to make you think about it. Where it's like oh maybe it could be her. Like maybe she really is struggling. But I again in the end I don't think they needed it. But
Yeah, that's a good point. And like, when would that scene be? Like early, late?
it was right after they were done talking to Marta. So like
Oh,
after like I like early like right after she
okay.
puked and everything, then he like scratches his neck and then he goes to see Joni and then he talks to her about it. So it's pretty early.
Oh, okay.
So
Hmm.
I guess they're just a little I guess a little breadcrumb thing just to see like, let's see if we can have people think it's going this way kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
Huh. Interesting.
then we get the like the whole we were talking about the politics talk them saying which is funny because it's really timely, especially like it's just like another election year coming up and it's just I thought it was hilarious how like none of them know where she's from too. Like everyone's saying a different place where Marta's from.
Yeah, and there's like and then we see Donna,
Yeah.
who is Walt's wife, and
Mhm.
she's like really weird in the
Yeah.
movie. Like she doesn't really have a lot of lines. She's
No.
super quiet, but as soon as the politics come up, she's like, "Oh, all these millions of Mexicans
Oh yeah,
come,
I
and
know.
then and don't make this a race thing.
Yeah.
You always make it a race." It's like, what are you talking about? You just brought up the Mexicans. What are you talking? Don't make this a race thing. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah,
so
she lit up in that moment too.
yeah, that was funny. Just the way she like snuck in there and had that little bar. But I don't know if you noticed. Well, I'm sure you did notice. But when Richard is talking about the like Mexicans
Yeah,
and
the border or whatever.
immigrants and everything,
Yeah.
he's eating cake or something, and
Mhm.
he doesn't even think, and he gives the plate to Marta.
Yeah.
And like I noticed it while I was watching. I was like, this piece of shit. She's the fucking nurse. What is
Yeah,
she?
I
What is
know.
she taking
Yeah,
your
I know.
plate for? He just sees her as like the help. Like, here, take my plate. Fuck this guy, man.
Yeah, that's so fucked up. Even Ransom does that shit with Fran. Does like, cause what is Fran's job? Was she just the cleaner, or she was the actual
Yeah,
clean?
she
Like
was
she
the
did she make?
housekeeper.
Okay, she was the housekeeper. Okay, I guess that makes. Cause I remember Ransom like asked her to like go get him something, but I'm like, is that even her job? Like, I think he's just being an ass. I think she just
Yeah.
cleans. I
Well,
don't think I
she might cook a little bit because like
okay.
the opening, like literally the opening shot is her getting Harlan's
Oh,
breakfast
okay, that's
ready.
true. That is a good
So
point.
I don't
Yeah,
know I don't know if there was a cook that made that and she's just bringing it up to him. We
yeah,
never see any other
that's good.
person, so I would assume it was her.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it's funny. I didn't even notice that Marta thing too when he starts handing her. That's yeah. It's like yeah, I'm a nurse. Why the fuck you? Why?
I read that the actor Don Johnson, that was
Yeah.
actually his idea. Like he
Oh, he
just did
ad
it.
libbed that.
Yeah, he just did
Oh, that's hilarious.
it. Piece of
uh,
shit.
oh, he is a piece of shit. That's funny. But so then we have then there's the whole thing of we get the whole background of like Marta's like the real thing that happened, and then now Marta's just like tagged along with Blanc and stuff, and then we just get her basically like covering her tracks. Like, what do you think of that whole like montage of her with the walking, literally covering her tracks,
Yeah.
and and that whole thing?
Yeah, this is where I think like that tone switch was where it was kind of funny. Like
Yeah.
we have Blanc who's like he's saying all these big words and like he's supposed to be so sophisticated, but then like he doesn't notice her doing all this stupid shit. Or I guess he does,
Mhm.
but like he like in the reveal in the end because he's like, I knew it was you all along because of the blood on her shoe. Which first of
Yeah.
all, how the fuck did she get blood on her
Yeah,
shoe?
I know.
She was
Well,
all the way across the room.
yeah, that's it. You know, the funny thing, I was showing my sister the movie for the first time, and she said the exact same thing. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I feel like that the room they were playing going was kind of big, but I think that study room was kind of small. I don't think there was much space between.
Was it not the same room?
It wasn't the same room. I don't think
Oh, I thought it
so.
was.
Was it?
Wasn't it up those stairs like to the? Wasn't
I
it?
don't. I don't know if it was because wouldn't there? Well, I guess they would have cleaned the room afterwards. Because I was thinking like, wouldn't there have been blood on the go thing and all that stuff? But maybe you're right. Maybe it actually was the exact same room. No, I think maybe you are right. That is,
Yeah, I thought it was, but
yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
I
But
mean, dude hit jugular though. Wouldn't it kind of
yeah,
splat? What a
you're right.
way to. We didn't even talk about that. What a way, bro. Like you're gonna die. Like I know, like you don't have that many options, but slit your throat. Why you gotta pick one of the most painful ways and then bleed out? It's not like he did that and instantly died. He had to, and then he was just sitting there and
I mean, would you rather? What would you do? Like stab yourself in the heart?
I
Is that a
don't
better way?
know. I don't know. He's wrote so many of those books. I feel like he would know. Maybe,
That's a good point. Yeah,
maybe
he probably would know.
maybe that was the best that he knows from his writing. But like, I just thought, I don't know why, especially when she came back in and you hear this, and then her
Yeah.
closing the door and crying. I'm like, I was just like in that moment, I was like, oh man, like
You know what I immediately thought of though? Because like you said, she sees him do this,
yeah,
closes the door, starts crying. I'm like, so if she lies, she throws up, but she could watch a dude slit his throat
Oh,
and doesn't throw up. That would make me throw up, 100%. She doesn't
That's
throw
a
up from that shit.
that's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I was like, there's no way. There's no way that if you're gonna throw up from lying, that's not gonna make you throw
Yeah.
up. No shot.
That's a very good point.
But yeah, like when she's covering her tracks and everything, it's so funny that like Blanc just looks like a moron.
Yeah,
And I guess if he did know all along that it was her and he's just retracing steps to find other clues, then I guess he knows, but he's just not bringing it to attention. But like when I'm watching it for the first time, I'm like, how is this guy not noticing?
Yeah.
Like when she's walking up and she's just like stomping back and forth, and he's
Mhm.
like, "No, wait, what you're doing?" She's like, "Well, I can't hear you."
Oh
Like
yeah, like
you're 10 feet away. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
It's like, what? Oh, these steps? Like, oh, you want me to walk here? Yeah, that shit was hilarious. I was also thinking too, I'm like, she's walking in mud and her kicks were white.
True.
That was wild, bro. And then the blood, like, she never cleaned that. Is that a plot? No, that's not a plot horror, like a lazy word. But now I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, she was stomping her way in mud in white shoes. When we see her shoes later, they're clean. So she cleaned her shoes, but she didn't clean off the blood. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
don't
Yeah, I
know.
never thought of that.
But I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know.
You know
That
what's
literally just,
crazy?
yeah, yeah,
Is like a movie like this, right? That the whole like the plot is so important and like the
yeah.
mystery and the plan is so important. Everything has to be so precisely thought out because you could easily have a billion plot holes in a movie
Mhm.
like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was only my first time watching, but really I only have one thing that is a potential plot hole, and maybe you'll have an answer to it like when we
Okay.
get there. But yeah, like for a movie like this that could have a gajillion plot holes,
Yeah.
there's only one really that I
That
noticed,
you
which is
noticed?
impressive.
Okay. It's interesting.
And I
Yeah.
could be wrong about it too.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, even the tape thing too. We're talking about the mud thing. The tape thing was kind of. Well, I don't think the tape thing was sus because the thing ended up breaking. But I don't know why they didn't just let the dude handle it. Because he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'll put in the tape. This is your job, dog. Why don't you just do it?"
Yeah.
She's because she's asking, "How do you do it?" So at that point, why don't you just step in and then do it? And that's not even a
That's
plot
true.
hole thing. That's just like a funny thing.
Just a little thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not my lazy word, but now I'm thinking
Yeah.
that dude could have got something.
You're right. He didn't want to press play on the fucking machine. How lazy is that? Honorary lazy award to
Yeah,
that
that's what
guy.
I'm saying, bro.
That's a good point. You know what's another cool thing about this scene I thought was like the whole rundown when she's uh like it's a flashback, right? So we're
Yeah.
seeing what she's doing right after the events of the death.
Mhm.
And it's cool that like we're seeing her do all these things, but we're hearing Harlan's voice like
Yeah.
as he's explaining, like telling her to do these things.
Mhm.
And then like when she gets messed up with the car, right? She's like, "Oh, was it before the statue or after the statue?" And he says, we hear his voice. One of them he says before, and then he says after, and then he says before after.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
so it's like it's messing you up in your head, but like the way they worked it all out so that we're understanding this is the plan that he came up with, but we're seeing her doing it. I thought it was a really cool way of just like conveying that information to the audience.
Oh, for sure. No, I completely agree. I thought it was definitely very yeah, and it's just funny too because like all the mess ups, like you're like, oh yeah, and make sure you do this and don't make a sound, don't do anything, and she's breaking the thing, and she's like,
Yeah.
and don't let anybody see you, and then his mom sees her, and that was another thing too. The ransom, you're back again. Like I don't know, did you think of anything of that when?
No,
Yeah,
didn't think of a damn. Didn't
because you're
think
just
that. I
thinking
didn't think
she's
nothing of it.
senile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, this is just some old lady. She's got like 6 coats on, and she hasn't moved the whole party. Like she doesn't even know. Like she just saw a person, and was like, oh, ransom, and I didn't think nothing of it.
yeah. Which I was thinking as I was something that I was like looking at my sister because like yeah, I'm watching with someone that I know hasn't seen it, so I'm looking at her. I'm like, is she catching that as something? Because I know it's
Mm,
something, but I'm
yeah,
like, was that an obvious thing? Because when I first watched it, I didn't think it was an obvious thing, but now I'm watching and I'm like, is that obvious that she's saying ransom? Because again, you're watching a mystery movie, so like you're taking every piece of information. Like, is that something or is that just bullshit?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't know
Yeah.
what's true, what's not. You don't know what has meaning and what doesn't have meaning. But also, you don't know that like she could have just sat down in that chair a minute ago
Yeah.
and is just confused, right? We didn't know that she was there for however long and saw ransom go up a couple minutes before. It's like
Mhm.
we didn't know any of that stuff. So I just chalked it up as a confused old woman.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we spoken about the man many times, but we finally there's a scene when we finally get to meet Ransom, and then have the whole the will reading. What did you think of? Because all we saw of Ransom from that point was just like flashbacks. So this is the first time we actually saw him in present time. So what was your thought? We finally got to see Captain America.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting. I was waiting for him to come in. Because I knew he was in it, right? And we saw him like at the party.
Yeah,
But then when we actually see him, like kind of meet him for the first time, and he's like the biggest piece of shit of all the piece of shits.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
like, geez, fuck this guy. But the big not the biggest thing, but one thing I noticed when they actually started reading the will, like
Mm.
the lawyer pulls the will out of the folder, like the
Yeah.
envelope, and he's like, "Oh, I guess this will be quick because it's
Mhm.
one page." I'm like, "Dog, you couldn't tell from the envelope?
Yeah.
Like you could feel that there's only one piece of paper in here. What do you mean? What do you mean? You like open it and now you're like, oh, it's only one page. You
Yeah.
didn't fucking know that? Come on, dog."
Yo, apparently I didn't know, like, I'm sure like huge Star Wars fans would have known, but I don't know. You know the guy that plays the will reader? Do you know who that is?
No.
It's an actor named Frank Oz, and he is Yoda. He's the voice of Yoda.
Oh shit, no way.
OG. Yeah, of every Yoda thing that's ever been, he is the Yoda voice.
Damn.
Yeah. And
They didn't throw like a little Easter egg in there, like he could have said something like
yeah, I
Yoda
know,
or something.
right? Yeah, he should have. He should have. That would have been cool. But like, it's the tie because Ryan Johnson directed one of the Star Wars movies, right?
Yeah, I
So
was just about to say.
yeah, so he's like, "Yo, come in my movie, bro." Like a little nod to that. But I didn't know
That's
that.
dope.
I didn't know it until I looked that up. I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah,
That's the,
I had no idea either. But he was a funny little character,
no,
man.
he
Like
was.
when afterwards when they're like, "Man, how can we get out of this?" He's like, "I don't know how many fucking times I told you. You can't get out of
Yeah.
this. Like this is his will." And then he's like, "Fuck you, you're useless." And he's like, "Well, thank you. Now I can
Yeah.
leave." Like all of it, he was great in his little spots in the movie. He was great.
No, I thought he was great too. It was just I thought it was interesting too because again, with the timeline of when I actually watched this movie, like this movie came out after Endgame happened. So like for there's this whole 10-year saga, like I only seen Chris Evans play Captain America. So it was just so interesting to see the contrast of after seeing
Mm.
Endgame and then seeing him like this. And I'm just like, oh shit, like he's really trying to do something really outside of being Captain America. Like, how would I go from being America's hero to let me be the biggest asshole in my next
Yeah.
role?
A jerk to my whole family, the help, everybody. But like when he comes in and they're reading the will, and then he says that like nobody gets anything, and he laughs and leaves.
Yeah.
That was another thing. I was like, nah, this guy, he's got to be behind this. He's
Mhm.
got to be because everyone else is like, what the fuck? Fuck you, little bitch. You
Yeah.
get it? Like they're all so pissed at Marta because they're like, now we're all broke because we can't live off of Harlan anymore.
Yeah.
And they're all super pissed. And he laughs and walks out. I'm like, he wouldn't also be super. He would be broke too. I
Oh,
was like, there's
100%.
it's got to be this guy.
My thing was I was thinking that he was like, oh, well, I already knew that I was gonna be broke. Like I've kind of accepted it. Now I'm just
Mm,
happy that all you guys are broke with me. But which
that's true.
again is a little wild to think. I'm like, you guys are telling me the fact that he didn't give you any money in your will, you guys you're not good at all. All these years of living, you don't have anything saved to the point where like if you don't get that 60 million or the book company or the house, you can't live your lives. Like, what have you guys been doing?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a good point, but I would say I feel like they're just living as if they have those means. You
Yeah,
know,
I
as if
guess.
they make $1 million a year or whatever it
Yeah.
is. They have this big house and all these things. So, when that money cuts off, then you're like, oh shit, how am I going to pay for this big? I mean, I guess you could just sell it and move to a smaller house, but like,
Yeah.
I feel like you get used to this lifestyle with
Lifestyle.
all this money, and then that gets taken away from you, and you're just like, fuck this little Brazilian bitch.
Yeah, that's true. Or wherever she's from.
I'm pretty sure it's Brazil.
Is it Brazil?
I think it's supposed to be Brazil. I don't know why I even say that, but I
How
feel
did her mom get
confident in
from
that.
Brazil to the States illegally? It's a far trek.
Yeah,
I feel like I was just assuming it was
and in
Mexico.
like Boston too.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're in south of the state, so that's a far way to go. You know, that's a funny thing that that I read because you mentioned Chris Evans. Like we saw him as Captain America for so long,
Mhm,
and now he's doing something completely different. And initially, he said he didn't want to do this
mhm.
because he wanted to take a break after Endgame
Yeah.
because he had been in so many movies just doing MCU shit.
Yeah.
But he actually got convinced because they were shooting it in Massachusetts, which is close to his house.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, just easy.
That could be a little lazy award too, bro. It's like, nah, I don't want to do it. And they're like, oh, it's just down the street. Okay, sure.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, like as soon as everyone heard Daniel Craig was gonna be on, everyone jumped on it. They're like, "Oh, Daniel Craig's gonna be in it," which is like, it's interesting too, because like I think Daniel Craig's a good actor. Now, obviously, he killed it as being Bond, but I didn't realize that other actors respected him that much. Like, especially someone like Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm like, she's already a respected actor in herself, but she was like even said in herself, like, "Oh, I heard Daniel's gonna be on this, so I wanted to join." I'm like, I'm like, you
Damn.
could have just joined it by yourself, and I'm sure people would have joined for because of you. But like,
Yeah.
it's interesting that they, and I don't think they shouldn't respect him that way. But I just thought it was interesting that everyone was like, "Oh, Daniel Craig's gonna be in this. All right, I'm on board." I'm like, okay,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Because I didn't read that, but you're right. I think he's a good actor as well, but I didn't know he's like that, like
yeah,
that. Like yeah, I didn't know that he garnered that much respect. But I mean, he was great in this movie too. Like
yeah.
he played Blanc was a super interesting character, and he played like the different sides of him super well. He was really good. But yeah, Bond. I mean, he was a good Bond. Did you like that Bond franchise? Like,
Yeah.
well, not the franchise, but that
Yeah,
his stretch.
that his stretch. Yeah. No, I thought it was good. To be fair, he's the first besides like I can't remember the last guy. The one before him, I only saw like his last two movies and then I just
Okay.
saw him. So like all I really know is him. I've been watching
Yeah.
the old ones recently now cuz Eloise is like a big James Bond fan, so like we watch the old ones and those ones are fun too. They have their own kind of fun charm to them. And so it's kind of funny seeing like what the cool tech is at the time when it's like the 60s or the 70s. I'm like
The
now it's
most
just,
basic shit.
yeah, it's the most basic. Some of the shit's still really cool though, where I'm like, that still would be really cool today. Like certain things are like, oh, if you open this suitcase, don't open this side or else it would tear gas. You open it on this side, and then you know, I mean, that
Yeah,
still could
yeah.
be cool today. That kind of
That's
stuff.
true.
But
Yeah,
but
tear gas is so cool. It's really cool.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But Bond was a wild boy. He's very forceful
Oh
as you
my
as you
God.
go further back.
Even in the Daniel Craig ones, he's pretty like he gets with girls and he just leaves them.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
he's just
true.
like, I mean, you're right. He's not. It's maybe a little better than the old ones,
Yeah.
but it's still he's still a lady. I mean, it's such a big part of the character. You got to stay
Oh,
with it.
yeah, for sure. And it's ironically too, in No Time to Die, it's Anna de Almas is one of the girls.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. She's in the last James Bond movie, she's the Bond girl.
Oh shit.
So they got to double wait completely different characters. She's playing
Yeah.
Kentucky, she's playing like this immigrant, and then she's just playing like a straight baddie in the James Bond, and he's like the back to being a British guy. It's like
Yeah.
completely different.
We got to do those for the podcast.
Oh, for sure.
At least Casino Royale.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely got to do some. Those movies are good.
Yeah.
There was one other thing too that I thought was interesting when I was watching like a behind the scenes thing. Like the moment after the will reader says that Marta's getting everything, and then you kind of get that montage of like she's like freaking out and like everyone's coming up
Mm.
to her like, oh no, like you're gonna help us, right? Like you should give the money back. Like and it's like spinning, like it's kind of like chaotic. Apparently, it wasn't supposed to be like. Do you remember like how it was shot kind of chaotically?
Yeah, yeah.
Like apparently it wasn't supposed to be that way. Apparently it was supposed to be kind of like steady and just like be like shot basically how the rest of the movie was shot. But apparently the steady cam broke. So they had to record it like on like a handheld. So it was just kind of shaky, but I felt like that worked out perfectly. Because it was like
Yeah.
a shaky moment. Like everyone's coming around her. Like you don't really notice the camera's shaking because it just makes sense. That's like
Mhm.
she's like spiraling, like what all this information, like what, like because that was a big plot twist. I don't know if you what did you expect anything with the will reading? Like, were you think it was going to be divided
No, I wasn't. I
individually,
actually
or?
wasn't that surprised, especially when like he pulled out the one piece of paper.
Mhm.
I was like, it's all going to Marta. I actually,
Oh,
I,
yeah?
I,
Okay.
yeah, I expect because I mean, like we said, the whole movie throughout, he's like cutting people off and like
Yeah.
he's like, screw my family. The only person that I fuck with is Marta. So I actually, I expected that, but that's an interesting point. I didn't see that fact that the thing broke, but you're right. That's literally the perfect time for it to happen.
Yeah.
Like if it's gonna happen, it adds chaos to the scene. Like it's from her point of view. Like we see it's like her head spinning. There's all these people all over the place, and she's just like, "Holy shit! Now I have all this money in this big house. Like, what the fuck do I do with all this stuff?" Like, it works. It just works.
And that was another funny thing too when they were like when they were like, this is our house, and they turn back to him and he flips the paper. Oh yeah, and the house goes to Marta.
Yeah, that was not. Yeah, that was. But that's what I mean. Like this movie that they slip in some humor. It
Oh,
just
yeah, no,
it's
it's
so
good.
great to like to keep it from because like you said, this is supposed to be a big plot twist. You're like, oh shit, now they're all broken, they're all pissed off, and the tone is really heavy. And then they slide in this little joke just to lighten it up a bit and throw you off. It's just so fresh. Like
Yeah.
in classic whodunits, you don't get this. So
No, it's
like
true.
this is the first time we're really seeing. Well, I haven't seen every movie ever, but for me,
Yeah.
this is the first time in this kind of movie that we're seeing this style, and they're introducing little spots of humor. It's great. I love it.
Oh, for sure. And like that's why I think as we're talking about it more, and I realized like as we're breaking it down because the movie, like you said, it doesn't take itself too seriously in the sense of like it knows it's a the movie knows it's a whodunit movie, and they'll do the tropes, and they even have the tropey detective, but like there's people making jokes in it, and they're making jokes about freaking it basically lives in a clue house, and like the
Yeah.
guy's about to die, and he's writing down like things about like plots and stuff like that, and it makes me really think of like it's kind of meta in that way, and like it's kind of like Scream in that way because Scream knows it's a horror movie. They talk about horror movies in it, and then even though when people are dying and stuff, people are still making jokes. So like I didn't even really think about it, but like that's probably why I like this movie so much because it makes me think of Scream in that sense of like it knows itself in the own genre and it makes fun of the genre, but it also is that movie in the genre. So it's like we're not gonna take
Yeah.
ourselves seriously. There's a serial killer, someone died, but we're still gonna get these jokes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. That's kind of the feel that we're going with for the podcast. Like
Yeah.
we're a movie podcast, so we're talking about movies, and we're talking about we could talk about like we just did Goodwill Hunting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's jokes in that for sure, but like it's the tone is serious in a lot of those scenes,
Mm.
but like we're not taking ourselves too seriously. Like
Yeah.
we know we're not like these movie experts and
Yeah.
movie critics, so we're just having fun with it. So it's the same idea, right? You're in this genre, and but why take yourself too seriously?
Yeah.
Like just have fun with it, and it's I guess a recipe for success. Look at
Yeah.
us.
Hopefully. Yo, if we
Hopefully.
get
I mean, yeah,
hopefully.
we're just having fun with it.
Yeah,
but-
no, exactly. But no, it's good. It's a good point. We're the meta podcast. We're the meta movie
Hey,
podcast.
okay, yeah, that'll be our thing. I
That's-
fuck with it.
Yeah. Oh, so then we get the so yeah, after Marta is compelled with all that new information, she gets away with ransom, and then they have like that meal where he like well, I don't know if he took down those 4 beers by himself. I don't know. That's just something I noticed, or if they shared that. It's besides the point. But did you get anything from? Is that one of the moments where you kind of got anything? Was it in this scene where you started to feel like he was kind of sus, or did you get anything
Yeah.
from that scene?
No, I think so because like the biggest thing, like she tells him, she's like, okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth,
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, first of all, why are you doing this?
yeah,
Like like you don't trust the detective. You're not telling them the truth, but you're gonna tell this guy who's been an asshole the whole movie.
Mhm.
Why are you telling him the truth? And then he's like, okay, now you're gonna do this because I want to cut.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, this guy's still a piece of shit, but I was like, now he knows the whole story, and
Mhm.
I feel like you could kind of see him calculating.
Yeah.
Like as like when she tells him, she tells him the truth because he expected that the vials were switched and that's how he died. But then she told him the whole story of, okay, I did this and this and this, and he's like, okay, no, so you have the money. Harlan gave you the money.
Mhm.
He wasn't expecting that to happen, so he's like, fuck, what do I do now? She tells him the truth, and he's like, and you see him kind of like thinking for a second. And I'm like, this piece of shit, this guy, there's something here. I didn't know the whole plan.
Yeah.
That for sure. I didn't know none of that shit. But I was like, this little fuck. It's
Mhm.
this guy. It's got to be this. It's got to be
Yeah.
this guy.
Well, I'm curious. What did you think though? Like, if you in your mind you weren't thinking that he switched vials, how could
Mm.
he be? How could he be part of something where, as of a viewer from the first time, you're led to believe that Harlan died because he slit his throat? Like, no,
Yeah.
Ransom didn't put a knife to
That's
his
a
throat or
fact.
anything. That's a fact. Like, Harlan put the knife to his throat and killed him. So,
Yeah.
in what sense was if you remember, what were you thinking in that moment?
Yeah,
Like, how
no.
could he be responsible for
That's
something?
a great question because, and honestly, my answer is I didn't know what, like I said, I didn't know what the plan was, but I knew really the only mystery that I knew at this point was who hired Blanc.
Yeah.
Because Blanc was like, okay, somewhere I got an envelope full of money and the newspaper clipping that this guy was dead.
Mhm.
So somebody hired me. I don't know who it was. So that's basically where I was going, where I was like, okay, who hired this guy? I know there's more to this. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but I know there's more to this. And like the whole who done it style of movie, and it was solved earlier on, right? Like you said, we know that Harlan slit his throat.
Yeah.
So that's not the mystery anymore. So there is another mystery, but I think that's what's so cool about this movie is like I don't even know what the mystery is,
Mhm.
but there's a mystery and I know someone did something. I don't know what it is. I don't know who did it. I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but I know some shit happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it keeps me on my toes so much when I'm going through the movie, because it's not just, okay, who killed this guy? It's like something happened. I don't know what it is, so I'm trying to figure out that. I'm trying to figure out what happened and who did it. So
Yeah.
it's like a twofer.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And it's like, yeah, in that moment you do, like you were saying, you do see him like calculating. And I feel like with me, I was thinking that he was just calculating like how much money can I get out. Like I definitely
Mm,
knew in that moment he was scheming. He's like, oh, I could use this to my advantage. Like I knew he was trying to do some shady shit, but like I
yeah,
wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know what could he have done? I was like, what's going on with Ransom? Like he obviously he's a piece of shit and he's trying to get some money out of them. And then but yeah, no, I definitely see how you could come across that same kind of thought process, because like he, especially in that moment, he just seems so suspect.
literally. And
Yeah.
all the other people, I think the biggest thing too is like Joni, Linda, Walt, Richard, like all of our other characters,
Hmm.
they had motives to kill Harlan,
Yeah.
but then we find out that none of them did.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, it's not them.
Yeah.
Like I, but at the same time, like Ransom had a motive to kill him, and we find out that he didn't kill him. But again, I think it was just I knew there was something there. I knew there was mystery. There was more mystery involved. You
Hmm.
know, it was really just the hiring of Blanc. I think that was the biggest thing. I was like, who hired this guy?
Yeah.
And and I was like, how could it be Linda? How could it be Joni? Why would they do this? And there just wasn't any pieces of the puzzle to me that made sense of why they were doing it. And really there wasn't anything that made sense to why Ransom would do it either. I just could tell that there was something about this guy. I don't know. I think it was just that he was just sus.
Yeah.
Like you
No,
said, he's
just a
just doing
feeling.
these sus things. So
Yeah.
it's just a feeling. And I feel like in a movie like this, right? You have to come up with a opinion,
Yeah.
like an opinion, you know. So at the end, you can either be right or wrong. You know, as you're going through, you're like, oh, I think it's this guy. Even if you're like, I don't really know, but sure, I'll guess it's this guy. And I guess
Mhm.
that was me with Ransom. I was like, I feel like it's this guy. I don't really have any facts to go off of this, but I think it's this guy.
You just gotta go off your feeling,
Yeah,
That's all you can really do. When you're
yeah,
presented a certain amount of information, you're like, that's my gut feeling. I'm going with that.
pretty
That's
much.
all you gotta
Yeah.
do. I think there was a slight moment where it's like, okay, I mean, at this point, you don't think anything he's gonna like Walt, for example. Like when Walt comes over to Marta's house and he's like kind of threatening her. You know what I mean? Like and like that's kind of a moment too. Like, well, this Walt seems kind of sus too, especially like I think if anything, if you were gonna rank motives, I feel like his motive would be the most. Like obviously, like Linda's husband, like the cheating thing. I'm like, that's you better not tell her. Like, I don't know if you would kill someone for that, but like the dad being like, yo, I'm cutting you off the shit. You're not gonna be on this shit anymore. You where it'd be like, okay, yeah, Walt's like, what the hell is he gonna what's he gonna do now?
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good point. And he's the only one that's really menacing
Mhm.
Marta like that. Like all
Yeah.
the other ones, they're kind of well, I guess, right at the will reading, they're all super pissed off at first, and then they're kind of like, no, are you gonna help us? Uh and then Meg calls and she's like, no, you're gonna help the family out. I think this is what you should do. And but it's interesting the switch for Walt, because right before she gets all the money, they open the will. Him and Meg go to Marta and
Oh
they're like, "We're
yeah.
gonna help you out financially. We're gonna be nice." So and he even says that he's like, we were gonna help you out. You gotta help us out." But then
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I thought he was gonna do so. I thought he was gonna like kidnap her. Like
Yeah.
I
It
didn't
got
know. I didn't know what
aggressive.
was gonna happen. Yeah. So like, but that's what like the tone just goes up and down throughout this movie. It's
Yeah.
insane. Like where that's a scene where there's no jokes. Like
Yeah.
there's no funny shit going on. It's serious. We're like, oh, is this guy gonna do something crazy? Right. But like the
Mhm.
the way that they seamlessly bounce from comedy to seriousness, so cool.
Yeah, because like you like to go to your point, like right before that, they're seeing on the news, like because the mom was like, "Is what's going on?" And her sister's just like, are we rich?
Are we
Is that
rich?
yeah?
Yeah.
Is that legit?" She's like taking pictures, like that's for us, She, like, and then it goes right to the Walt moment. It's like that flip we were just talking about. How it
Yeah.
was just like it was all like bubbly and goofy, and then the Walt comes and it gets kind of like grim, like in that hallway, kind of like poorly lit, and it's just like it seems like, well, not seem like he's threatening her. He's like, yeah,
Mhm.
I heard your mom got into this country illegally. Like it's like, oh shit, all right, Walt, damn,
Yeah, and it's a tight space in this little hallway,
yeah,
and he's like inching closer to her, and she's backing up. I was like, he's about to fucking punch her in the head or
yeah.
something.
You don't know what he's gonna
I
do.
didn't know.
You don't, yeah, you didn't know what he's gonna do, and that goes to that scene too. There's another thing in there too, where it's like um, that little hint. Well, not little, yeah, no, it's a little hint, I guess, that you see, like when she's holding all the letters, the one that she opens, where it's like the thing in the mail that we've learned that it's Ransom that sent her. It's already open. Like
Mhm.
every other piece of mail, you have to cut open everything. That one is already open, so that's a little thing of you realize it's like, oh, like that piece of mail was sent to her, like someone already opened this. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if it was initially meant for her, it just would have been closed, right? It was like you realize that on the second viewing, where it's like, oh yeah, that piece of mail is already open, and it makes sense because Ransom opened it. And maybe that's another lazy war too. This motherfucker couldn't just close it, get some, like, I don't know, put it in a new envelope or something. I don't know. I'm
I mean,
just,
it's unmarked, and
yeah,
that's like, but good thing she even noticed that. Like, there was this big ass pile of mail.
yeah,
What if that
sure.
wasn't on the top of the pile and she just didn't even see it? You know
Yeah,
what I
that's
mean? What would
true.
happen then?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he could have put Marta for Marta on it or something. Yeah, how
Yeah,
would she even know it was for her? But hey, this is what it is. But this
yeah, it is
goes
what it
to
is.
another deleted scene, and it kind of like it gives more context too, because the whole time we see Walt, he has a cane, right?
Mhm.
And it's just like a character thing. You don't have to explain every single scar or whatever where a character has something, but there's a whole cut scene where you learn about why he's even in a boot, and they took
Really?
that out. Yeah, and it's like it's a very tone switch of the movie where I feel like it opens up this whole other side of the movie where it's like that I understand why they cut that out, because there's a scene when his wife come home, and then she goes to the front door, and there's a dude standing there smoking a cigarette, and you see him with a gun, and she's like, oh snap, and then she runs, and like Blanc and the rest of the detectives are there, and she looks back and the guy's gone. And it turns out he's like, oh yeah, you guys said that Walt got messed up in an accident, like a bike accident, whatever, but apparently there was a bullet wound. So like apparently Walt was like, he was dipping his money into some illegal stuff, and he owned some people
Mm.
money, and this whole will thing was kind of fucking him up, where it's been like, oh shit, now I'm not gonna get my money. How am I gonna pay these guys? They shot his leg because like, yo, we want more money. I'm like, yo, that's a whole another freaking Breaking Bad ass storyline on the side, man. Like,
And his name's Walt.
yeah, and his name's Walt. That's a lot to add on. I was like, that makes sense why they cut that out, because like, yeah, that's a whole other storyline. It definitely makes him more of a motive, like more of a motive. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
guy owes money to the freaking cartel. I could see why you wanted to kill his dad.
Yeah. No, you're right. But yeah. No, you're right. No, yeah, that's a really good point, because I was about to say, no, why would he kill his dad? Because then he's not going to get the money. But he assumed that in the will it would
Yeah.
go to him.
Mhm.
But no, you're right. That just opens a whole other can of worms, and like you're just like, okay, this guy's in illegal shit. So when he's in that scene with Marta, I'd think even more. I'd be like, he's like desperate. Like
Yeah.
they're all desperate, but this guy's really desperate.
Yeah.
Like, what is he? Is he gonna do something even crazier? And it just it's a lot. That would be a lot.
No, it
Like, there's
is.
already a lot going on in the movie, which is the point, right? Is
Yeah.
to keep you guessing. But yeah, I don't think you need that. It's the same thing like we were talking about with Joni. Like, he already has enough motive to be the killer.
Yeah.
I don't think we need any more.
No, for sure. But that one was very ominous in the sense of like, I'm like, damn, like that's a whole other like it's a whole, not to say it's a whole different movie, but it's like, damn, like that's a whole other layer of story. Now we
Yeah,
got the
because I feel like
cartel involved.
yeah, I feel like you couldn't just leave it alone at that. You'd have
Yeah.
to go further into that, because you'd have to show kind of at the end. Because then we'd be at the end, we'd be like, okay, Marta has all this money, he's not giving it to them. Is this guy just dead?
Yes.
And his family's just
That's
gonna
what,
die?
that's what I'm
Like,
saying.
I feel like you would then have to go more on it, and it's already over 2 hours, this movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like that subplot, it doesn't need to be in
Yeah,
there.
no, it didn't need to be in there, which is fine. It was just kind of cool to see. I'd say check it out. It's a cool little thing. Just type in "Knives Out" deleted scene if you want to see the
Mhm.
scenes. I thought it was kind of interesting, but yeah, in the end, it probably just didn't need to be in there. But it's always kind of fun seeing those little deleted scenes, seeing like what the movie could have been, kind of thing. Sometimes.
Yeah, you're right, and it's fun to talk about,
Yeah.
like to think about why they cut it out.
Mm.
And kind of put yourself in the director's shoes or something, or the editor's shoes. I guess it's the director. That's
Yeah.
well, especially in this case, it's his movie. He wrote and directed it. So, but yeah, it's fun to think about. Like, okay, was an idea that he had. They tried it and they decided to go away from it for whatever reason. And we're talking about like, oh, this is a whole subplot that you'd have to explore more. Maybe there's a totally other reason that he cut it out.
Yeah. No, that's true. No, that's 100%. But then we like the whole covering. We talked about this a little bit before, the covering the tracks with Ransom and everything like that, where it's like the driving the scene, like going to the driving scene started from them going to the clinic and then seeing those already burned down. Like, were in this moment? Is that when you were getting more sus things? Because you said to check the email thing, but
Yeah, I was already leaning towards Ransom. And then yeah, when he was with her every step of the way at this
yeah,
point. And I was like, okay, this guy's he's covering his ass right now. Like
yeah,
he's with her every step, like making sure that she doesn't figure out too much or that things go the way he needs it to go. Like calling out the email thing, like, hey,
mm,
maybe you should check your phone.
yeah,
Maybe they told you to meet up somewhere.
yeah,
Whoever it is that's blackmailing you, maybe they
yeah,
want to meet up somewhere. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But but when we find out that the medical exam, the whole office burnt down, I was like, okay, here's a new layer to the
yeah,
story. Like again, like every step of the way is just like nothing that I expected. Like it's
yeah,
just constantly taking it into a different direction. The twists and turns are great, and it's always like something happens. Like we notice that the thing's burnt down, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, now
yeah,
what? And then there's a fucking car chase, and I'm like,
yeah.
a car chase? Seriously? I was not expecting this in this movie. And it's so funny. Like at the end, Lieutenant Elliot, like Keith Stanfield's character, comes out. He's like, that was the stupidest
Yeah.
fucking car chase of all
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was hilarious too. And it's a good point you mentioned too, because I had the exact same thought too, where I was like, the way this, like, especially this who done it, they usually end up being very like, they stick in one area. So like the fact that
Mhm.
this movie, because even when we went from like their house to Marta's house to Ransom house and then the restaurants, it felt like we were in these environments. But then when you throw a car chase in, it's like, oh, I did not expect a car chase in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, now we're popping. Like, what's going on? What's going on in this movie? I don't know where it's heading.
Exactly. And that's what's so fun about it, right? You're just sitting there and you're just along for the ride because you don't know what the fuck's going on. And every time you think it's going this way, it takes you another direction, which is so fun. But the car chase is so good. And then yeah, so Ransom gets arrested, or they go and question him,
Mhm.
and then she pukes in the cup, puts it in the car, and then she starts driving with Blanc. I'm like, this guy can't smell this
Oh yeah,
cup
I
full
know.
of vomit right beside him.
No, it is not. And
And he's like jamming out to the music. It's so funny, bro.
there's another funny moment too when it's well, it's two funny moments. It's the one when they're driving. He's like, "Are you flooring?" He's like, "I'm literally flooring it," and the car's like barely going anywhere. He's like, "I should have got the Porsche." And then like Blanc is calling and she keeps hanging up. And then the moment when she turns left or turns right, and he's just like, "Answer the phone, answer the phone."
Yo, it's so funny because yeah, he looks at her. He's like we're catching up to you.
Yeah,
Answer the phone, and then he even looks at her. He's like,
yeah.
what the hell? What are you doing? Answer the phone. Like he's so like, what the fuck? Come on, Marta. What are you doing? Yo, it's so good, man. Daniel
Uh,
Craig is killing this.
Oh,
It's
no,
so
yeah.
funny.
And that goes to the point of it not taking too seriously, because like a car's
Yeah,
the chase scene could have been like just very serious, like, oh, but like they're adding the humor elements into it is just, it's what the
it's
movie is.
great.
It just makes it
It's so
so
good.
it just makes it so good. Yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
And then like when she gets into the laundromat,
Yeah.
and then the tone immediately switches again. It's
Oh
scary as
yeah.
hell. Like we
Yeah.
see someone sitting in the chair, but it's all dark. We don't know who it is, and we don't know if they're dead or
Yeah.
because they're not moving, they're not answering.
Mm.
But like the lighting is super ominous. It's an abandoned laundromat, and she's slowly walking in. I was like, my cheeks were clenched, bro. I
Yeah,
was like,
no.
this is crazy.
No, it was creepy. And again, the tone switch you weren't expecting, where I was like, oh snap, what's about to happen in here, yo? She's about to get caught. And and also, what's happening with the ladies in the front of the freaking spot? They don't know what's going on in the back there. They just because Marta just walks right through and goes to the back. Ransom goes back there with Fran too. Just like no one's going back there.
That's a good point.
At
Yeah.
all.
I never thought of that.
I
I just see these people walking back and forth, and then there's the sirens. Like the ambulance comes, and then they don't even check. Well, I guess at that point it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. They
yeah.
could have checked, but
I
that's a
just
good
thought about
point.
that.
I
I
never
just thought
thought of
about that. I literally just thought about that in this moment where I was just like, those girls did not care. What was it, a nail salon? What was it? I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember what
They're
it
just
was.
doing their own shit. They didn't give a damn. They're like, it's, some dude going back. It's Captain America. Let him go back there. I don't care.
Hey, they're just minding their
They're
business,
just minding
man.
their
They're like, hey,
business. Yeah.
I'm here. I just want to go home at the end of the day. It's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's none of my business. I thought it was also funny too, where like all that wrapping up, and then Marta's like, "I'm ready to come clean," like everything was me, and then Blanc was like, "Yeah, Ransom already snitched already. Like he told us everything." I'm like, "Damn, he snitched quick. He snitched quick."
Instantly, and that's another one. I was like, it was him. Like
Yeah.
he's throwing it in Marta. He's trying to now, get her blackmail. Well, he is blackmailing her,
Yeah.
but now he's trying to pin it on her, and he can take the money for himself. I was like all these little things that he's doing. I was like, it's got to be this guy.
Oh,
It's got to
yeah.
be him.
Yeah, and then like as we're getting into it, like we get to the whole climax. Well, I don't know if you call it climax, but the whole wrapping up of the movie where Blanc figures it out, and we get the whole like, this is how we do it. So, like, what was your thoughts about the uncovering? Like, is this where you heard a plot hole in this part, or did we pass over?
Yeah, no, it was at
It
this
was
point.
in
So it
this.
was
Okay.
so really, to me, it was the whole Fran thing.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions about Fran, and I hope you'll have some answers. So first of all, well, I guess this isn't an actual plot hole question, but like, why the fuck did she go to meet him solo?
Yeah.
Like, Fran, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This guy's a piece of shit. You know that this person tried to kill his own father.
Yeah.
You're gonna meet him solo in an abandoned laundromat. What you don't think that he's gonna try and hurt you? What are you doing, Fran? So that was my first thought.
Yeah.
But the thing that like genuinely confused me was like, so she knows something's up with the vials, right? So she sees him messing with the vials in the bag.
Hmm.
But then she goes and gets the blood work, and the blood work is clean.
Yeah.
So wouldn't she then be like, "Oh, I thought he was killing I thought he killed Harlan with the blood samples
Hmm.
or with the vials, but the blood sample says that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I guess he's clear. How does she know? Because she sends it to him and says, "I know what you did."
Yeah.
How does she know that he's trying to pin it on Marta? Like
Hmm.
she knows that he played with the vials,
Yeah.
but that's not what ended up killing Harlan.
Mhm.
So she doesn't know that he is trying to pin it on Marta, and that these vials is actually pertinent to the situation. Like, if anything, she could have looked there and be like, "Oh, he's messing with the vials. Oh, I guess he wasn't, because that's not actually what killed Harlan." You know what I mean?
Yeah. The only thing, and again, this isn't through research or anything. I'm just like thinking of
Yeah.
it like maybe when she got the tests, because like she saw him messing with the what's it called? Messing with his what's it called?
The
Medicine.
medicine.
Medicine, right?
Y-
So she
Yeah.
knows he's up to something. She
Yeah.
knows that he's doing something shady. I don't know what a blood work looks like in the sense of like what you'd be able to see when there's things in your system. Maybe she doesn't know how to read it. Maybe she knew, and I don't know how long that stuff stays in your system, because they said that does he get that daily? How often is he getting stuff in his system? So there would have been
daily.
so there would have been already, because like if they're always like if every now and then they're doing a little bit of it just to have some fun, there would be some in his system. So maybe on the thing it said that, but she didn't realize how much would be the amount to actually fuck with you. Maybe it still said that there was an amount, but they knew that, like I guess Blanc, for example, knew that like, oh no, it's clean in the sense of like this wouldn't be the thing to kill you. But maybe she just didn't know. Like I'm just assuming she just didn't know how to read it properly. She visually saw him do it, and she's like, I know there's something fucked up here, so let me just send this to him, and then he'll know that like I know he's doing something fucked up. That's just my assumption.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's a good
I don't
point,
have an
though.
answer. Yeah, I don't have an answer for it, and that could be right that she just misread it. But I feel like if you read it, you would see that the guy OD'd on morphine, and that's not actually what happened. We know that that's not actually what happened. So we know that it actually says that Fran is innocent, or not Fran, Marta is innocent. You
Hmm.
know, she didn't actually OD this guy, but she doesn't know that Marta is being blackmailed.
Hmm.
She doesn't know about the whole blackmail thing. So she said because she initially sends it to Ransom and is like, "Nah, fuck you. I know what you did. This is the thing. It shows that you OD'd your dad or your grandfather, but that it doesn't show that. So
Yeah.
what the fuck is she even?
No, that's a good
What is
point.
she? How does she know?
That's a good point. I just wonder, would they classify it as an OD if it's already like, oh, this guy slit his throat? So then, are they even looking to see? Like, they obviously do the blood work, but in the end, like, if he had died from the neck being slit, I don't think they would have even classified it as an OD. Would they even classify it as an OD, or just the
What?
blood work would just show it that, oh, he had a lot of that shit in his system, but that wasn't the cause of his death. The cause of his death was the
Yeah, I
slice.
think they just did it because just to like they do an autopsy to make sure
Yeah,
that there
just part
was
of the
no
opposite.
foul play.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that would have confirmed that there was no foul play.
yeah, that's true.
So because there wasn't that shit in the system, I mean, there would have been a small amount, but not enough to OD him.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I honestly didn't think about that. And again, I don't think you're bringing it up like that ruined the movie for you or
No, no,
anything.
no, it
But
didn't. Not no, not even a little bit.
yeah,
But
it is a
and
good
then when we go
question.
through the whole run through, like Blanc like spills the whole beans and like
Mhm.
says the whole plot and like so this is what I definitely didn't see this coming. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know the whole plan. Like I said, when Ransom came around the corner, I was like, I knew it was this little shit. But what the fuck did he do?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
then Blanc tells me the whole thing, and I was like, okay. And the first thought I had was like, so Ransom was at the party, right?
Mhm.
Him and Harlan have this big fight.
Yeah.
He storms out and he says he's driving for a couple minutes and then he stops, turns around, and he came up with this convoluted ass plan in
Yeah.
like 5 minutes. He knew that okay, I can switch the vials and
Mhm.
take the antidote. He knew that all that shit was in there. How did he know all that shit? Come up with this shit in 5 minutes? That's crazy.
It is wild. The thing that I think Ryan threw in there, like Ryan Johnson, he threw in there that helped that case is the fact that he said that he spent a summer researching
That's true.
with Harlan for a book. So he's
That's
like, I
true.
spent a whole summer researching like all this stuff. So like I know if that line isn't in there, then you're like, how would he even know this stuff? But they threw that one line in there. He's like, yeah, I spent a summer researching with Harlan, helping him with like books and stuff like that. So that's how his mind, I guess, could. And obviously,
That's a good point.
everyone in the house probably has like a story, like a whole story murder mind thing because they've been around those books so much.
Yeah. No, that you're right. That's a good point. I like that answer.
Yeah.
But like another thing is like the Slayer rule. Like he would have to know that if Marta killed Harlan,
Mhm.
then
The
he
will
would get
thing.
all the money. Yeah,
Mhm.
the will thing.
I don't think he knew that.
Because oh, you're right. No, he didn't know that because he wasn't dead at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Good point.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think he knew.
Yeah,
I
these are all questions like
yeah.
as because this is my first watch, so like it's so much information coming
Oh
in like
yeah.
a short span. So I'm trying to follow it all, and these are the questions that pop up. And I was like, I'm about to talk to Dion about this, so maybe I can bounce this off him, and he'll have some answers. So yeah, absolutely none of this ruined the movie for me,
Yeah.
like none of it at all. But like another weird thing was that when so Marta lies, right, that Fran's dead,
Mhm.
and then she throws up, and then they get not Harlan, Ransom to admit to what he did, and then the officers like recording. How did he know to start recording at that
Oh
point?
yeah, I know. I don't know. In
Why
that
is he
moment,
recording?
I don't know if that was like a little offside thing because they didn't even mention it. Where I was just like, "Hey, good." They don't have to, but like, "Hey, it's a good thing that we planned it." Like, show a little thing of like, make sure you record. Like,
Yeah,
I just assumed that was part of their plan. Where like when Blanc brought them in, he's like, "Hey, make sure you turn on your recording," and he'd be like, "Why? Just do it." Like one of those
that's
kind
true.
of little off-screen things that probably happened. But
I guess it wouldn't even be necessary if you admit it in front of two officers and a
yeah,
private investigator.
nah,
You
that's
don't
true.
even need the recording,
That's true.
but whatever.
No, but so
Do you remember your first watch, like when the whole reveal happened? What your reaction was?
oh, I was shook. I was shook. Like yeah, I was shook in the sense of like, oh damn, like I didn't even. And it's one of those little things too, where it's like, oh man, like that's what the like we were talking about, like oh that's what the barking was. oh,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like all these little things. I'm like, okay, okay. Like I like that stuff. And then all those scenes come back, and it's like, oh, it's not like I just again, like I said, I'm someone that loves mysteries, so like I love that like not every movie has like the whole information dump, but when like all the little loose ends start getting like filled, you're like, it's so satisfying.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, you're right. But like when Ransom came around the corner, did you were like your first time where you're like, oh shit,
Well, yeah, my thought was like, okay, like what did he do? Because
what
again,
did he
like,
do?
because
Yeah.
up until this point, we're just like, okay, all the information we got is that Harlan killed himself. So I'm like, are we about to see some like alternate universe story that like you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like I was so confused. I was like, what are we about to see? Because like you said, you don't know what to expect from this movie. So I'm like, what kind of information about they tell me? So
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a great twist. Like I said, I kind of thought it was Ransom, but that was really just a gut feeling.
yeah,
It could have been completely wrong. And like the whole plot thing, like you said, the callback to the dogs
yeah,
and to Fran and her cousin with the medical examiner, like all these little things that you're like, oh yeah, she did say that
yeah.
in the movie. But like it went
And
one
out the
ear
other.
and out the other. Like I wasn't even it's total throwaway line, but like all the callbacks, you're right. It's so satisfying. It's like sinking into a hot tub or something. You're just like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, nice.
And even there's like that one little thing too where we get the payoff with the with Linda and his husband when she
Mm,
takes the her lighter and then it shows the little hidden message and they're like,
yeah.
oh shit, that was a little game that they played. Because up until that point, like unless you were like, did you know that was gonna be like that? That was another thing
No,
I
I
didn't
didn't.
ask you. Like when you just open up and it was like a blank paper, did your mind go to like, oh, is it like some kind of invisible ink or something like that?
Not at all. No,
Okay.
not at all.
I don't know if you're a sleuth like that, where you're just fucking
No.
Nancy Drew, or you're probably like,
I mean, this was my first, but I know that there's a scene earlier on when we see Linda. She's like looking at past
notes.
messages,
Yeah,
notes from her dad because it's the same paper.
yeah,
And I didn't notice if it has that burnt ink. I would assume it does.
yeah.
Like that's that same stuff, but like it's something that I didn't catch on my first watch. So when she did it, she started lighting it. I was like, oh
Mm.
shit, oh bitch ass gonna get caught.
And the funny thing is too, when well, it's not. I don't know why I'm saying it's a funny thing, but when you see her looking at those notes, obviously on my multiple watch, then I'm looking. I'm like, oh, I see the burnt
Yeah.
marks on these. So then it's like, because like otherwise, when you just watch that scene first time, I understand it's just like she's just looking at old notes. You're not really like inspecting what
Mhm.
you're looking at. But then as you look at the scene again, I'm like, okay, there's some burn marks on here. I see. I see what it is. Because she hints it too, like, oh, me and dad used to play this game. Like, you had to have a game with him for him to keep him interested. It's just like, well, what was that
True.
game? Like, that wasn't just a throwaway line. It was said for a reason because it came back and then
Yeah. No, you're right. And like when she's looking through the notes, I just assumed she was, reminiscing about times with her dad, like the listening or
yeah,
reading the notes from her dad and crying. Like you don't, that's normal, right? So
exactly.
you don't think anything of it. And then the whole burn thing, but it's a cool little Easter egg for a rewatch, stuff like that. But the last thing, the last thing I mentioned was just they had to finish it off with this little funny thing, like the fake knife.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like when he
yeah,
goes to kill her, it's like slow mo, and we're like,
yeah,
"Whoa, he's about to kill her," and then it's just a fake knife.
yeah.
And Chris Evans' delivery, just
He's like,
like the shit,
yeah.
shit. Like it's so simple, but it to crack me up.
No, it's funny because like the beginning of the movie, and that's not necessarily the end of the movie. That wasn't the last line, but
Right.
it's kind of like it tagged. Like the first thing we hear is when Fran sees Harlan, and she's like, "Shit," and then when he fucking almost tries to
Ah,
kill her,
true.
he says "shit." And I thought that was kind of. I only noticed it this time. Where I was like, "Oh, it's funny how like the movie starts with shit, and then basically the climax ends with shit."
Shit.
Yeah,
Like it's so simple. He's just like, oh man.
yeah.
But like, even if he killed her, what would that
Yeah,
change?
I know. He
I
just
guess
get
it's
his
just a
frustration.
revenge
Yeah, just his
thing.
revenge
Yeah.
out. That
But
that
it cracked me up.
no, and that plays into that plays into the whole cliche thing. It's just like, why would someone
True.
do that? It's just like, well, it's because it's a movie. We're being dramatic. Here's a slow mo of him killing her, and it's like, actually, no, we're not doing that shit. Like that doesn't even make sense. And it's funny. It's a callback to what Harlan said too when they were playing Go. Do you remember that line he said?
Maybe
He was
no.
he was
Well,
talking
I don't know
about
what you're talking
he
about.
was talking about Ransom, where he's like, "Oh, Ransom, like I see so much in him." He's like he
Mm.
lives the world like it. Like lives through life like there's no consequences, and he thinks the whole world's a game. Like he couldn't even tell the difference between he couldn't even tell the difference between a real knife and a prop knife. And then he stabs a real
Oh,
knife. Yeah, and then
right.
he stabs a real knife on the table. So
That's yeah, you're right. That's a great. I didn't think of that until you just mentioned it, but yeah, you're right. That's a perfect little foreshadowing thing. Nice.
and then it's showing you it's like, damn, this dude couldn't tell the difference between a real knife and a prop knife because the whole world's a game to him, which is in the sense of like, yeah, it's crazy. Like you're treating the killing of your father like it's a story. Like he's so detached from real life because he's never had a job and he just lives life so freely doing whatever.
Yeah. No, good point.
But yeah, no, that's obviously something you don't really realize until like it's either like a second watch where it's like, oh, the knife thing. I didn't even realize he said that
Yeah.
because otherwise it just feels like a throwaway line.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Now that I think about it, like, there's got to be like no throwaway lines in this
Yeah,
movie. It's
I
it's
know,
fucking
right?
crazy.
Everything's got something. It's tightly written. He apparently he only wrote it in like freaking 9 months.
I know that's
It's
impressive, dude.
insane. Just crammed. I mean, he's got a lot of experience from writing. He's been for his first movie came out in like 2005, so like he's been writing for a long time. It's not like this is his first time picking up a pen and he's like, "Oh, I wrote this in 9 months." Oh shit, what the hell? Like he's
Stay-
yeah, he's been working at it. There's
Still impressive.
no, it is still really impressive because even Tarantino and Nolan, those guys usually take like a year and a half to like structure all their stuff that they do.
Hmm.
They're different kind of movies and stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah.
but there's one last like link that tied the movie. The cup. I don't know if you noticed the cup thing too. Where the movie starts with a cup, like the first thing you see is Harlan Cup, where it says
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"My house, my house, my something, my rules." I correct
My
it, but I'm,
house, my rules, my coffee, something
oh
like
yeah, I
that.
think it is. Yeah, I think my
I think
yeah.
I think it's that.
And then yeah, the movie starts with that, and then the movie ends with that too. Because then they all look at her, and then she's just holding the cup, and she's covered up
That
the
was
bottom.
tough.
Yeah, she covers up everything except where it says "My house," and then she's just drinking,
Ah,
and then just
yeah,
cut.
that was tough because it's like the camera's like backing up, so we see each character individually like
Yeah.
turn around and look at her, and she's up on the balcony. She's looking pretty tough. The another shot that I wanted to shout out actually was when I think it was just before. Oh no, yeah, it's just before the climax when Blanc figures it out. Like
Hmm.
he's reading the medical examiner's
Yeah.
thing, and then he comes in and he starts chewing them out. But we get a shot of like the whole family
Hmm.
like sitting in the living room or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
like Linda's petting the dog. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's
No,
tough.
that is tough. No, this movie was shot really well too. The cinematography was. I imagine there was a lot of storyboarding like thought that went into it
Hmm.
for sure. But yeah. No. Do you have any like any other thoughts besides like, any facts they didn't get to?
No, I actually didn't find a ton when I was researching, so I got them all out.
Okay, there was one last thing that I saw. I mentioned the 9 months thing, but you know how like Ransom threw that jug into the clinic?
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah,
Oh,
go.
you did see this?
Yeah,
Yeah, so like when you see him talking with Marta back at the house, you see he has a lineup of jugs and one of them's missing. And it's
yeah,
like, oh shit. Well, which again, it's not something you'd think about. You know, like why is there one jug missing? It's like
yeah,
maybe he just didn't have a full thing of jug. It did look a little strange on a second viewing where it's like, oh, okay, there you go. But your first time viewing, you're not looking in the background at jugs. But
yeah.
it's a nice
No,
little
I didn't see
attention
it
to
at all.
detail. It's a nice little attention to detail,
For
just to
sure. No,
add those
yeah, I
little
didn't
hints.
notice it at all in the first watch. Like it's just in the background of the scene. But you're right. I did see that. That was a cool little Easter egg that they put in. And actually, that reminds me of one other a fact that I did see. It was apparently Ryan he kept the script limited to what he told the actors. Like each actor, he gave them specific parts of the script that they would have to know, but he left out the whole thing so that they were also confused
Mm.
like to how the ending was and who did what and what was going on, just to try and keep that confused feel a little more authentic in the actors.
Okay, that's cool. It's interesting. I've heard that style before. I can't remember.
Mhm.
I think Wes Craven did that with Scream. Like he didn't tell people who the killer was gonna be. Like
Yeah.
everyone, like he kind of left that open, like the last couple pages of the reveal. So like everyone, be yourself, be like very like sus and everything, and then you're gonna find out who the killer is once we get to that day where it makes like the acting like okay, I guess I gotta be sus in this moment because like I might be the killer. I
Yeah,
gotta, you know what I
exactly.
mean? So like I've had so interesting to do that.
That's really cool. Yeah, to be like, it could be me. I could have
Yeah,
fucking killed this. I don't even know, but I could have been the killer. It's cool.
it's interesting. But yeah, that's all I got for facts. So
All right,
that
let's get
might mean
into the
it's time. It's
filmies.
time.
All right, everybody, welcome to the filmies. Like Dion teased earlier, this is our award show. Totally meaningless, but we like to have fun with it. We got 6 awards that we're going to give out to different people in the movie, different parts of the movie. And we're going to start off with our fit check. So, best or worst fit of the movie, Dion.
My fit check goes to Linda. So Jamie Lee Curtis's character.
She had some fire fits.
Yeah, she had some fire fits. And mine it's the first fit she has, the first time we see her. She's wearing like this all pink suit. It's like she got the pink pants, the pink shirt, she got the pink blazer, and then she kind of got like the black circle flame glasses. And she had the Cubans on, she had the Cuban link around her neck.
Did she have a Cuban link?
I
That's
look like a Cuban
crazy.
link, bro. Like I tried to get a screenshot in the movie trying to so I could see close. I look like a Cuban link to me. I mean their family's rich, so I'm gonna give her the Cuban
Yeah.
link. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
I'm gonna give her it's an 18 karat gold earring too. Like I know she's not shy about spending that money. I mean she did grow her business from the ground up, Scott. I don't know if you knew.
She did. She did do that.
She could, and all I gotta say is if you know for sure if she jumped in a pool, that shit ain't turning green like a worm in Coach Carter.
Fact, she doesn't have to take it off.
No,
That's
she
just
don't got it.
legit.
That's
She's
just
good.
legit.
No, that's really funny. You know what that makes me think of is with that deleted scene with like the cartel. She would have been the secret leader of the cartel, or like with the Cuban link. Like she's actually the mob boss, threatening her own brother over the money.
Oh, that'd be
That would have been a cool little side plot.
Oh, 100%. Freaking like, yeah, that sets up a whole nother movie, the whole prequel movie.
And dude, she's the one sitting on the chair with her legs crossed, petting the dog. Yeah, she's like a super villain, bro.
I mean,
she's
Jamie,
tough.
if you're gonna do it with any of those actors, Jamie Lee Curtis definitely could be.
Facts.
She's a boss. But what about you though? What was your fit check?
Yeah, she has some fire ones for sure. I almost gave her one of mine, but I didn't.
That's
so
fair.
I gave mine to Ransom.
Okay.
And it's when he first pulls up for the will reading, dude.
Yeah.
He comes out of the whip. We see him for the first time. He's got pinstripe pants, the clean white sweater, brown jacket, and that scarf was just fucking
clean.
It was sick.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
fucking
it's
sick,
clean.
bro.
It's
And he
good.
had the shades on when it comes out of the car and he's walking. He carries like this douchebag energy, but like it works with the fit. Like
No,
he
it
just like
does.
he knows he's got this shit on and he's flexing.
No,
It's
that
tough.
definitely is a big part of it too. He comes in with so much bravado, like with so much swagger. And again, it's like this is our first time seeing. Everyone else is like distraught. Dad just died. We get some flashbacks. First time we see him, he's just coming in. He's just coming with his chest up. He's just roasting everybody. Yeah, he's like that's a good fit check.
That's almost part of the fit. His
His aura.
demeanor
Yeah.
and his aura. Yeah, you're right. That he's just stepping in as part of the fit is great.
No, that's good. I like that.
We're gonna move to our Nas Reed Award.
Okay.
6-man award. So someone with a small role in or out of the movie,
Mhm.
behind the scenes that did the most with their small role. Who gets the Nas Reed Award for you, Dion?
So my 6-man award goes to Lieutenant Elliot. So Lakeith Stanfield's character. And I just feel like he adds this element of like, because we talked about how the movie like doesn't take itself too seriously, and like with the cliches, but then also like cracking jokes. And I feel like he is kind of like he's like doing that for us in the sense of like him mentioning he basically lives in like a clue house. And then you mentioned it earlier too, where he's like, that was the dumbest car chase scene of all time. Where it's like cars chase scenes happen in movies. It's just like they just happen and then they take them.
Yeah.
But him mentioning like that shit was so stupid because like where are you guys gonna go? Like there's an investigation going on. Like I know where you live. Where are you guys going?
And the car is so slow.
Yeah.
Like we're catching up to you. Like this shit is so dumb. Man. Oh, that's a great pick, man. He is really funny. That's a great pick.
And there's also too like there's another point too that made me laugh with him is just because Blanc goes into like his soliloquies of him just talking in his word vomits of just like
Yeah.
his Sherlock Holmesisms and all those things. And then he calls him and he's like, yo, what's with all the drama? Like, just get to the point. Like, just say this shit. And
Yo,
then,
and Lakeith actually kills the role
oh
too.
no,
Like
he
he's
really
so
does.
like just stone faced. It's not dramatic when he's bringing it up. Like he's basically saying it as if he's part of the audience. Like
Exactly.
just calling out the stupid shit in the movie. It's so good.
100%. And it's just like, I get, yeah, it feels like he's a character, like of like a person watching the movie, in the sense of
Yeah.
like, again, when he's going into his whole like donut hole speech thing, and then he's just like, yo, I understand this is amusing for you, but like, again, he's like, get to the point. And then the last thing I gotta mention too, which is hilarious, is like when Harlan's like talking about all the thing, and he's like telling us like, oh, talking about the ambulance and everything, and he's like, oh yeah, she's still alive, da-da-da. And he's just like, damn. Like he just gives the classic black guy damn when all the information gets revealed. He just damn.
Damn. You almost picture him with like stink face.
That's
as
what
he
I'm.
says, like,
Yeah.
damn. Like you just heard a bar or something.
No, he was so good. That's why I had to give him 6 man for that.
That's a great pick, and we are so close to a certified
Oh,
because I gave mine to his partner.
damn.
Trooper Wagner is
Yeah.
his name, and really, like he was so happy to be there.
Oh yeah.
Like Lieutenant Elliot, he had most of like the lines, and
Yeah.
he was clearly like the guy in charge.
Mhm.
But Wagner, like basically all of his little things that he threw in there, like he knew all of Harlan's books.
Yeah.
So like anytime something happened in the plot that was like a part of a book, he's like, oh, that's from
Yeah.
fucking Red Sparrow from this, right? Oh, that's from this. And he's so like smiling ear to ear, just
Oh,
so
yeah.
happy to be there. He's like, yeah. He even says at the beginning of the movie, he's like, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Mm.
It's like the guy's dead, bro. Like you're
Yeah, I know.
you're here to investigate a murder, or well, I guess you think it's a suicide,
Yeah.
but like he's just so happy to be there. He's like calling out all the books. He was great.
Yeah, no, he was hilarious too. That's a good one too, because like even like you said, he's just so happy to be there, and you're like, it's time and place, bro. Like someone just
Yeah,
died, and you're
exactly.
just so giddy this whole time. And then even the thing, he's like not trying to spoil. He's like, no spoilers, but like the 1,000 knives. How do you guys come up with that stuff?
It's so good, bro.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, those two characters are so great in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And they just, for what they're there for, they kill it. So the fact that we both showed them some love, it wasn't a certified, but they both earned the love, and I'm glad that we spread it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like I think that was one of the things I remember. I forget the actual actor that plays Linda's husband's name, but like his real
Don
name.
Johnson.
Don Johnson? Okay, Don
Yeah.
Johnson. He was saying how like when he was reading the script, he was like, oh, like he's like, this is the first time I've read a script in a long time where I read a script and then read it again, because I didn't expect, when I heard I was gonna be in a whodunit movie, he's like, I didn't think it was gonna be this funny. He's like, this is a comedy whodunit movie. And that was what enticed him to want to even do it even more. And it's like, yeah, this movie really is a comedy.
Yeah, that's what makes it so good, man. Is just like it's not just it's full of cliches,
Yeah.
but they make fun of the cliches,
Yeah.
and like it's so fresh. It's
Yeah.
just so fresh. It's something we've never seen before. I've never seen before, and that's what I think it, like, in the world of movies, like there's so many movies out there. It's so hard to do something fresh. So
Yeah.
when you see something like that, it's just refreshing.
No, it really is. I 100% agree.
It's great. Okay, we're gonna move to we talked about it, our lazy award.
Oh, yeah.
So we call this our Ferris Bueller award.
Mhm.
So yeah, in a movie like this, there is a lot of opportunity for plot holes or little
Yeah.
lazy things. So I'm curious to what gets your award.
Well, I showed my hand a little bit when I was talking about my Ferris, but my Ferris Bueller goes to Marta. And for me, it's mostly just the whole situation with her kicks. Like there was blood on her shoes, and throughout the whole movie she never changed her shoes, or like, to me it was maybe it's more of like how you'd only have one pair of kicks. Like, I'm not trying to like shit on her bank account or anything, but I'm just like, yo, Marta, like, you were involved in this whole thing. Like, I get it. You're probably nervous in this moment because you never done anything else. Like, but to me, I think it's lazy because she never even thought about changing her shoes. She changed everything else about her. She never looked at her shoes once to check, be like, yo, like, am I good? Da-da-da. Like,
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because I feel like if I was in a situation like that where I killed someone, or if I was involved with a murder, I'm trying to cover it up, I'm just like burning the whole
That's
fit.
what I'm
Like
saying.
why would I like if there's any possibility to have a shred of his hair on me or
That's
well, I
what I'm.
guess that wouldn't implicate
Yeah,
me
but
because I was there
anything, you
anyways.
just be
But like
shook.
yeah. And like why what's the reason not to do it? Well, I guess if you're broke and you can't afford another pair of
Yeah.
shoes, but like yeah, that's a good point.
It's not the strongest Ferris wheel I've ever had. I know I'm picking at straws here, but that's what I'm rocking with.
That's okay. That's a good
Yeah.
one. I like it. I gave mine to Richard,
Okay.
and it's for not destroying Harlan's note to Linda. So
Mm,
because Harlan shows him, he's like, see, I have this letter, and if you don't tell her that you're cheating, I'm gonna tell her.
yeah.
So when Harlan's dead, he goes and he gets the letter, and like you talk, he opens it and he sees it's a blank page, and he just leaves it there.
Yeah, I know.
Bro, why are you taking that chance? Just throw it out or just burn it. Like, why just leave an open note there that could possibly implicate you to cheating on your wife? Even though you think it's empty,
Mhm.
what is the reason to not just throw it out?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, because it's like, and he left it on the table. It did not. For,
What are you doing?
and for some reason, he just throws his baseball out the window. I don't know why he did that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought that was actually going to be something. I was like, oh, because then the detectives are walking around the building
Yeah,
and they
that's
find
true.
the baseball. I was like, oh, are they going to find the note because they're going to put the baseball back or something? And it didn't end up being anything unless I missed something. But
No, it did end up
why are
becoming
you not throwing
something.
out the note?
The baseball thing ended up fucking up in the end because this is the journey of the baseball for those
Okay.
watching the baseball. The baseball was on his desk. The baseball got thrown out. Blanc took it with him, and then when Blanc was with Marta, I don't know why he had it for so long, but he the dog. Remember the dog came up with the
Oh,
thing
the
in his mouth,
dog. Yeah. You're right.
and then he
Okay.
threw it, and the dog was playing with it, and then I don't know where the ball ended up at that point. But then Linda found the ball and she's like, "What the heck? This is Dad's ball." So then she brought the ball back to his room, and then
Oh,
that's
and
when she
that's when she
saw the
found the note.
note. Yeah.
Oh, so the double lazy award. Him throwing the ball fucked himself over too.
He
He
fucked
didn't throw out the
himself
note
up,
and
man.
threw the ball. What are you doing, bro?
It's so because I was thinking the same thing too. Obviously, the first watch, like, why the fuck? What's going on? Why do you throw the ball at the window? And you see Blanc pick it up. I'm like, okay, like this is something. And then yeah,
Yeah.
it fucked himself. Fool.
So that's why he gets my Ferris award.
That's
He's fucking
fair. I like that one. I like that better than mine.
lazy. Okay, sure. Not that it means anything, but okay. So we're gonna move now to our best quote.
Okay. My favorite quote goes to Benoit Blanc when he's I think this is when everything's getting uncovered when he's like what was overheard by what were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
Yeah. Oh my god, that's an amazing quote, bro.
That should kill me, bro. Oh my god! Because at that point, everyone's just calling him a Nazi things to roast him, but even the detectives calling him a Nazi child.
And it's so ridiculous with his accent. Like it
Oh
just
yeah,
sounds,
I know.
it's so ridiculous. It's so fucking funny. And like there's so many moments in this, not so many, but there's a couple moments where like, especially like when they read the will and then they're all yelling at Marta
Yeah.
and like they're all just yelling over each other.
Oh yeah.
And if you listen, there's some hilarious little
Oh, a little banter in there.
little
Little things said.
little notes in there. And because apparently I actually only read this afterwards, but it was Walt when Ransom comes in, he's telling all of them to eat shit.
Yeah.
And Walt is like, I am not going to eat one iota of shit.
Oh.
And apparently Michael Shannon ad-libbed that. And it's just fucking hilarious.
No, that's fucking
like
hilarious.
there's so many little things, but you don't even hear it because there's like 12 people all
Yeah,
yelling
just all
at
screaming
the
over
same
each other.
time. But it's so fucking funny, dude.
Yeah, I heard there's a bunch of ad libbing going on that because it's like everyone's just screaming. So because
Yeah.
for the most part, Ryan was saying is like, yeah, like I'm not opposed to ad libbing in movies with like things, but this movie's so tightly like knit that I can't have a character just saying something like in a meaningful conversation where it's like, that doesn't like doesn't work with the plot. But in like scenes like that when people are just like talking over each other, it's like, yeah, just say whatever funny thing comes to your head. We'll see if that
Yeah.
works, and then
Exactly.
if we want to keep it in, we'll keep it in, kind of thing.
But you're right. For the most part, like what words you say are actually very important to the plot,
Exactly.
which is interesting. It's not really like that in most movies.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So my quote, I gave it to Lieutenant Elliot
Mm.
talking to Blanc, and you mentioned it a bunch of times. He says, "Look around." The guy practically lives in a clue board.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he said that, like, just it's so perfect for like the tone of the movie. Like we
Mm.
talked about, right? It's just calling itself out on all the movie tropes it's
Yeah.
doing, all the cliches, and it's it works with the over the top scripted nature of the movie. Like realistically, like things with a perfect plot like this don't happen.
Yeah.
So like calling it out that it's like a clue board, it's like a board game. It just works so good. It's so good.
No, it's hilarious, and it's just like it's funny too because it's just like yeah, mentioning the clue board thing. It's like they're supposed to be in the States. It's like again in Europe, it's just so natural. I mean, there's definitely castles in the States, but it's just like it just seems so absurd. I'm like, there's like a rich family in the States. Like they could have lived in a mansion, could have lived just in a big house, but have them in a castle. It's like no, we have to have that trope of them being
Yeah.
basically in a castle type
Yeah. So
home,
him just
basically.
calling, like we just mentioned, because he was your sixth man, like he's basically an audience member just calling out all this stupid shit.
Yeah,
And that was one that stuck with me. So that's why that's my quote.
no, it's a good quote. I like that.
Second to last, we got best scene. What was your best scene?
So my best scene was the scene when Ransom came through.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
so
will
like,
reading?
huh? Well, just him,
That was
just his whole thing coming in. Like, what does we meet Ransom for the first time? It's like
okay, okay.
he comes in firing, bro. Like the first thing he says to Blanc, he's like, "CSI KFC," and then, and then he just walks right past him. He's fucking. It's like, how's the social justice warrior degree coming along? And she's like, "Fuck you, trust fund
Yeah.
prick." Like, it just comes in just shitting on everybody. And then to me, when I think of this movie, I mean, there's so many elements to this movie. When I think of this movie, the first thing that comes to mind is eat shit, eat shit, eat
Yup.
shit. You can definitely eat shit.
Yeah.
Like,
His own parents?
yeah, I
Telling
know.
his own parents to eat shit is crazy, bro.
And him just like, yeah, he comes in like so with so much um just heat in the movie. Like in that scene, it's like everyone's arguing, it's like we should do this more often. And just he's just so snarky, like his dad did, like when they're like, oh, like because Walt's calling him out. I was like, I think he let you out of the will or whatever. And this dad's like, son. And he's like, father.
Father. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
And then Walt has his whole screaming thing in him. And he just takes on. He's just like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like, wow. And then just keeps
Yeah.
eating his shit. Like he's just,
Dude, Chris Evans kills it.
oh, yeah.
And you're right. Like he comes in. Like as soon as he comes in, it's like the whole movie stops and it's
Yeah.
just about him.
100%.
It's crazy. Like he carries all this energy that like he walks in and it's like every single person in the room is only looking at him, only talking to him, and
Yeah.
he's sitting as if like he's sitting on a beach, like he's so totally
Yes.
comfortable. Like he comes in with this swagger, this coolness, when everyone's just yelling at him and he's just talking shit, roasting everybody. It's a like what a performance, what a character. It works so good.
Oh, yeah. No, it's so great. And like, that's why I had to give it my best scene because, again, it goes off the fact of like, this is because I watched this movie when it came out, so I'm going off of I watched Endgame, and this is the first thing I've seen him in since like watching all the Marvel stuff. So I'm like, this is hilarious. I'm like, I've been so used to him being this other character, and I'm like, this is awesome. So
Yeah.
I just love that. I just love that scene so much because that stuck with me so much. Like obviously the whole twist and everything in the movie, I love the movie, but I'm like, I walked out of that movie thinking like, yo, that's Captain America getting on like that. I'm like, that was awesome.
Telling his family to eat shit.
Yeah. It's like so quickly they wanted to like this is not the same character we before. Like he's
Yeah.
coming in like he's an asshole. This is not America's ass. This is not this is not America. This is not Captain America. But what about you though?
That's
What,
a good.
what
Yeah,
was
that's
your
a
best
great
scene?
scene. Yeah, that was a really good one. Mine is Marta's flashback. It's basically the reveal,
Oh,
like
okay.
with Harlan and the whole plan that he set up.
Yeah.
Uh, kind of like I already mentioned that. Like I did not expect this.
Yeah.
I didn't expect the reveal of how he died and who killed him to be this early. So like when the whole thing's happening, I'm just like, wait, is this actually happening? Like this is actually what happened? I thought this was like going to be the climax of the movie, and this is like 45 minutes in. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
This is so great. And then like I mentioned, when we see her doing the stuff, but we hear his voice telling her to do the things, and we also get her confusion, like when she messes up the statue, like which side of the statue to pull off the road, and we hear him saying two different things to her. So like it puts us in her head throughout this scene, and it just works so well because he's a murder mystery
Yeah.
author. So like it's such a convoluted plan, and
Oh,
like I'm just so locked in throughout this whole scene, finding out how it all works and what went down. It just is great.
no, it's really no, that is a really good scene, and I think like I think if we it was my first time watching the movie, I think that definitely would be my favorite scene too, and because like to me again, it was that thing of like, yo, like I'm not used to watching a mystery movie like this where they're just giving me this like right in the middle of the movie, so I was like,
Yeah,
that's crazy. So like the first time watching, I was like, this is great, and I think I just started appreciating the Chris Evans scene more as I keep rewatching. I'm like, oh, this is freaking hilarious, and like it didn't lose its luster of like I mean, I guess it does lose its luster because like the reveal isn't a reveal to you anymore. Now you're
right.
watching it for different reasons. So as I kept watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this scene's hilarious. He just comes in just shitting on everybody. This is hilarious. And like, but I do really like that scene though. That is a really great scene because for anyone watching the movie the first time, and I hope everyone that's listening to this, this what you've seen the movie. That reveal is just like, oh bang, it like turns the movie on its head.
I know. It just like it's really the biggest thing is where it is in the movie. I was like, how is this happening right now?
Yeah.
How is this happening right now? It's so good. It's just totally unexpected. And then from that point on, I was like, okay, what is going to happen in this movie? Because my expectation has already been backflipped.
Mhm.
So I have no idea what the hell is going to happen. I'm so locked in. It's great.
No, it's really great. It's a great scene.
Last but not least, MVP. Pretty self explanatory. Who gets it for you?
So my MVP goes to Rian Johnson. I mentioned it. I mean, this is like I'd say it's a passion project. Whenever you write and direct something, I'd say it's a passion project. And even if you're just directing, it's a passion project. But the fact that again he wrote it in only 9 months, again we talked so much about the way the movie was structured. I thought it was just a brilliant way to write it. We talked about the humor. Again, we're kind of just I'm tapping on points that we've talked about throughout the just discussing this movie. It was just the things that made this movie great. He was the reason for them because I mean he wrote it, he directed it. I really like there's specific scenes, the specific scene that we talked about, like that waltz scene. Like I thought it was just so interestingly shot in that tone switch of just like, oh, like we know that your mom is an illegal, and just it was just the choice of showing his cane hit the ground, like this that
Mm,
hard shot like every single time as he's getting closer. It's making it more intimidating as he gets closer and closer. I'm like, oh shit, like you got to give nods to why was this scene so intense? Like obviously like the other scene was like it was dark and everything, so it was just creepy and ominous in that sense. But then that scene, it's like, oh, that's like some thoughts going into that of like let's show him like the sound design and all that stuff, like the thought. So I really like that scene. Again, he crafted this movie up. He made the Glass Onion movie too, which I enjoy too. I think that's definitely a movie we should do for the pod, especially because
I'm down.
they're doing a third one.
Yeah, yeah, I just
So
saw
we
that.
might maybe when that third one comes out, we'll do Glass Onion right before it as like a lead up
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing, because that movie's good too. And like again, like the plot twists and that like, it's not even spoiling anything because that's what you expect from his movies. It's
Mhm.
good in that too, and I'm curious to see. Again, it'll be a rewatch for me, and I'm curious to see what your mind process is. But I gotta give him for that too. And there's one last thing I gotta shout out is a nod I saw in research. He directed. This has nothing to do with this movie, but I saw that he directed the Fly episode in Breaking Bad. You remember that episode? The Fly
The
episode.
Fly. Is that
It's when Jesse and Waltz are just like in the
Oh, in
um
the lab. And there's a
yeah,
fly in the
and there's a
lab. Yeah,
fly
yeah,
in the
yeah,
lab too.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I don't know, like I don't think that's like an all time episode of something like oh it's one of the best episodes of Breaking Bad or whatever it is. But it's just like this funny little silly episode that you say the Fly episode and you just remember it. You know what I mean? There's a lot
Mhm.
of episodes that have memorable moments, but like the Fly episode is kind of interesting because it's like one of those episodes where it's just like basically a character development relationship episode where they're just doing their things. But I thought it was interesting that he directed an episode because when people direct TV episodes, like you're not really like, oh, Tarantino directed that episode of where did it, you know what I mean? But it's kind of interesting when you see like, oh, this is like an actual like big director guy that did a huge show's episode. So I just threw that's a little fact in
Interesting.
there.
No, interesting little fact, but I think it was cool that when you shouted out that scene specifically with Walt
Yeah.
and Marta and the cane thing.
Mhm.
You're right. Like I didn't really think of it, but I didn't think of it like that. But it's a good point. You're right. That is one of the big reasons of why the scene it ramps up the suspense.
Mhm.
Like why, like we talked about before. I was like, I thought he was gonna hit her. I thought he was gonna
Yeah.
do something. Like I didn't know what was gonna happen. It was very creepy. And you're right. That's probably a big reason. Like every time he taps his cane, it's like it just like pounds in your chest almost. You're like, oh
Yeah.
shit. Like it just ramps up the suspense more and more. It's a good point. It's a good point. I
Oh,
didn't think of it.
thank you. But I'm curious to hear who was there. Who was your MVP?
Yeah, still no certifieds. I
Damn it,
didn't
man.
I
Damn it.
almost gave it to him, and realistically I should have, because like you said, writing, directing, like it's
Nah,
his
it's all good.
he is the MVP. This
It's all
movie
good.
doesn't exist without him.
It's
But
all
I gave mine to Daniel Craig.
That's fair. I'm not mad at
Because
that.
his performance was just so good. I
Yeah.
think like you're right that a lot of the things that we liked about this movie are based on the writing or the
Mhm.
director or the characters.
Mhm.
But I think Blanc himself as a character and his story was the most interesting part of this movie. Because
Mhm.
like I said, the initially I thought the whole mystery was who killed um Harlan
Yeah.
and what happened there. And then we get the reveal early on. So then the real mystery is who hired Blanc and why is he here? And he's the only one that's like, no, this wasn't a suicide. There's more shit going on here. So like, I thought his whole side of the story, his character was really interesting, and he played him amazing. Like
Yeah.
he had to balance out that sophisticated like word vomit stuff that you're talking about. He's saying all these crazy things to sound super smart, but also be funny. When he's talking about like the donut hole and
Yeah.
the what did the Nazi in the bathroom masturbating say? Like the little shit like that. Like but he's also a moron. Like in these situations when he's jamming in the music and the ambulance pulls up, and he's like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" Like
Yeah.
he's
No, he's
like the character is just so interesting. It's so far to each side, like super smart. Like he solved this whole mystery, but at the same time, he's a fucking idiot and he says all this stupid shit. And Daniel Craig plays both sides like so well, and it's so interesting that I had to give him my MVP.
No, I'm not even mad at that. And it's funny too because like we'll go back and forth with that. Like one of us will pick the director, and the other person will be like, "How would you not pick the director?" And like,
Yeah.
but it's like the characters too. Like again, like you said, like I'm going against my own thing. I'm like, yeah, sure, you wrote them and directed them, but people like that are acting as these characters, they gotta show it up. You know what I mean? They gotta come through. And Daniel Craig definitely came through in that role. Like he was great. He was great in that role, and it's also funny because just like he's playing this like Kentucky guy. It's just like the British guy. It's just it's so funny to see him in that role.
It's so like that part, like his accent, it's so ridiculous.
It is so
But
ridiculous.
like that's what like there's some parts of his characters that are over the top, ridiculous, stupid, and
Mhm.
some parts that are really smart and sophisticated and like thoughtful. Like when he's talking to Harlan's mom, right? And he says it in 1,000 words, but he's basically like, I'm sorry if I'm the only one that's actually came to say I'm sorry for your loss
Yeah,
because your family are all pricks
yeah.
and they only care about themselves and money. Right. But like having a meaningful scene like that was a really good scene too, actually. But having a meaningful moment like that with his character, but also having stupid shit and funny shit to do, like he had to do a whole lot and he killed every part of it.
Oh yeah, no, he really did. And it's funny because there's another thing that it just came to mind too. I completely forgot about it. I saw like Anna de Almas was talking about how like she was like, oh, it was refreshing to see someone else on set that had to get like a speech coach because he had to get
Mm,
someone on that I guess spoke in that kind of twang to be like, oh, this is how you would say this. You'd have to say it like this because I didn't even really take it in. You kind of forget that like I mean, obviously, and her name's Anna de Almas. I didn't think English was her first language, but like she like the fact that she still needs like a speaking coach. I'm like, oh, she must be like really just learning English. Cause like she
mhm.
only really broke into Hollywood in maybe like the last, well, now it's been a while, but at the time it only been like 5 years. So like she was only making like foreign movies speaking in Spanish. So like I was like, oh, I didn't even think about it. Cause when she just speaks in these movies, it doesn't really seem like she's playing someone that doesn't know much English. But I mean, that's just the power of acting and learning how to the things.
Yeah. Having a
Yeah.
good speech coach, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, for sure. Which I just thought it was funny though how she was saying is like, oh, I wasn't the only one that had to have a speaking
Yeah.
coach. Like Daniel was trying to figure out another language basically too.
Yeah, that is a funny point. And man, we went back to back, or not back to back, but like we like Goodwill Hunting when we did the opposite. I gave it to the well, Matt Damon, who wrote.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't direct, but he wrote and starred in. You
Mhm.
gave it to Robin Williams, who killed an important character, and now we're doing the opposite.
Yeah, that's
You
exactly
gave
what
it
I
to
was.
the writer director.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was
mentioned it.
thinking too. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just like, we flipped because you
Oh.
were like, "How do you not give it to them?" I was like, "I don't know. I had to give it to Robin Williams," and now you're like, "I'm like, damn it." I'm thinking like, Daniel Craig should have got it, but like I was like, I got to give some love to Ryan. But hey, they
You're
both
right.
get some love in the end.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough. In movies like this, like they both deserve it.
Yeah.
Like they both did great in their respective roles, and like if you think about it, black and white, in theory, you're right. In this case, the actual most valuable player is Rian Johnson because he wrote and direct. Like it's 100%. He's the most valuable. Like someone else could play Benoit Blanc,
Yeah.
but no one else could have. It came up with this whole idea and the story, direct the movie, like
Yeah.
all that shit. And then vice versa for Good Will Hunting. In theory, I was correct, but like the Daniel Craig and Robin Williams both murdered those roles for important characters, so got to give it up.
Also,
They deserve some love too.
also to your point, also that like with the Robin Williams, you mentioned that they needed that big star to get the movie
true.
made, kind of thing.
Yep.
I mentioned it earlier. If they didn't get Daniel Craig, maybe they wouldn't have got as many people to jump into it.
That's true.
It's a different
Yeah.
movie. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they would have got some good actors if maybe someone else ended up being the detective, but maybe it's not the same. Not everyone jumps to it if it's not like a guy from that stature. So he gets there's another MVP in the sense for him just being Daniel Craig.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think that's actually pretty important when you have a movie like this, that having a cast of at least similar caliber actors like across the cast, because if you have like a whole bunch of B-listers and then you have two A-listers and you're like, well, I'm assuming the A-lister is the one that did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're going to have the bigger role where they're going to they're going to have the reveal and they're going to have the acting moments where they're killing the guy or whatever, right? But you have all these actors very well established, could be any one of them.
No, that's a good point. And then they stick with that in Glass Onion too. I mean, they got freaking Edward Norton, like Batista's in it. Freaking
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson's in it too. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be like that's like this trope now. He's like, I gotta have all these big people in it now because otherwise people are gonna think it's the big actor. Everyone's gonna be big.
Yeah. Do we know who's in the third?
Yeah, I saw Mila Kunis is in it, but I can't. I don't. There's some other people I don't have it on hand, but they're doing the same thing again. It's gonna be a bunch of big people, and obviously Daniel Craig's in it.
Yeah,
that's all you need to show everybody. It's like, hey, Craig's gonna be in again. Like, sign me up.
Benoit Blanc is here.
Sign me up. But did you have anything else anything else that came to your mind that you want to bring up?
I'm good, man.
You good?
We did it.
All right, we did it.
Knives Out.
Yeah. So if you if you want to give us, maybe you want to give us your award, maybe you have a 6th man or you found like a Ferris Bueller that we didn't point out, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at the Film Room Pod, and we'll read it on the podcast. On the next one, we'll be like, oh, this person said in Knives Out, this should have been the 6th man, and hey, whatever your award is, we'll accept it if you have one. If you like the show, send us a review, your thoughts, and we'll also read it on the pod. Apple, Spotify. If you want to, again, we don't try to come off too pushy with the whole like give us the 5 reviews thing, but it's something that helps us grow, and we're trying to build a dope movie community, man. Me and Scott would come on here. Yeah, it'd be dope to have a community that we all love movies, right? So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I mean, we always love getting comments from y'all on posts saying like, oh, I read this about the movie that y'all didn't mention, or like seeing, because that's really the goal is to build this community where we just talk about movies, have fun with it, crack jokes, and that's the whole the film family, or the movie mafia, the Hollywood home.
Exactly. We still don't know. Maybe we still don't know. But finally, though, to close us off, I know sometimes you feel like a donut, so you'll throw on a podcast to fill that donut hole. But then after you're done listening, you realize that there's a donut hole within another donut hole. Fortunately for you, today you're in luck, because the Film Room Podcast, we fill that hole. No Diddy. Peace out.
No Diddy.